Ready.
All right. I'd like to call to order the Eastpointe Planning Commission special meeting for Thursday, May 22nd at
Record voice memo.
7:14 p.m. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hall-Rayford? Here. Mr. Stokes?
Here.
Mrs. Murphy? Here. Mr. Zelinski? Here. Mr. Sasek?
Here.
Chairman DeHuff?
Here. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda for the evening?
I'll move that we approve the agenda for tonight.
Second.
We have motion by Mr. Sasek, support by Ms. Rayford. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Sasek?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall-Rayford? Yes. Mr. Stokes?
Yes.
Mrs. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski, yes. Chairman DeHuff?
Yes. Moving into the first hearing of the public, you have 3 minutes to speak. If you are here to speak about the topic of the evening, I would ask that you hold those comments for the public hearing when we reopen that. Otherwise, you have 3 minutes to speak on anything that you like. Please write your name on the paper that hopefully is up there and speak loudly.
Hi, Jennifer Nicholas, Eastpointe resident. Feel like I'm shouting. Victorious Kids Child Care Center is located at 24487 Gratiot on the southwest corner of Gratiot and Forest. My understanding is that building was purchased January 21st of 2022. The zoning approval that was done by Bridget Smith was done November 8th, 2022. Chief Mark Hart did the fire approval November 9th, 2022, and Dennis Shemansky did the building approval November 15th of 2022. My question is that when somebody purchases a commercial property, is the city involved in it at all? At what point in the process would a commercial property owner be advised that their business might conflict with either our zoning ordinances or another property? And who would be responsible for letting the property owner know that there is a conflict? Would it be the city planner, building official, city administration? My concern is that with this child care center where it's located, it is in an area that is considered a buffer zone. It seems like the timing was pretty close. The medical marijuana discussions were throughout 2022, but this person had purchased the building in January, and then by the time that it was opened, it was right around the same time that it would be conflicting with another establishment that's in the buffer zone there. I guess going forward, I want to know, and I know I'm not supposed to be asking questions, but is there a way to alleviate this? How do business owners know if they're buying property that it might be in an area that they don't want to be? I know that there were marijuana overlay maps of the city, but was that available to people that were coming in and purchasing property during 2022 or even the end of 2021? So those are my concerns on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Renee Johnson, and I'm actually the program director at State Child Care Center. And she really asked just about everything that was on my paper. I think my biggest concern, and I talked to the owner, she's out of town right now, and I asked her, well, did anybody tell you that there is a permit license kind of in the air for a cannabis? And she said, I've never heard of it, I would have never bought the building. I know her, she would have never bought the building. So if this place is within the 400 or 500 feet buffer, who is responsible for fines or anything that happens? We have to move our building. We have to go look for another building. Right now, we have 36 children in that building. That's families that would have to find other care. So we're kind of same questions Ms. Jennifer just asked. That's all I have.
If you didn't, please write your name down on a piece of paper. Can you write your name on the paper if you haven't? Very good. Thank you. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing none, first, close the first hearing of the public. We will move on to the approval of the minutes for the May 1st meeting of 2025. Is this loud enough?
I move that we approve the minutes from the May 1st, 2025 meeting.
We have motion, do we have support?
Support.
We have motion by Commissioner Sasek, and we have support by Commissioner Rayford.
Mr. Sasek?
Yes.
Mrs. Rayford?
Yes.
Mr. Stokes?
Yes.
Mrs. Moody?
Abstain, I was not in attendance.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman DeHunt?
Abstain as well. Moving on, can I get a motion to reopen the public hearing that was tabled, I believe, at the last meeting?
So motion.
We have a motion, do we have support?
I'll support.
We have motion by Ms. Moody, we have support by Mr. Stokes. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mrs. Moody?
Yes.
Mr. Stokes?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall Rayford?
Yes.
Mr. Sasek?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman DeHunt?
Yes. Does anybody wish to be heard about the topic for this evening? You have 3 minutes. Podium's yours. Anyone from the public wish to be heard about this discussion?
Hi, Jennifer Nicholas, Eastpointe resident. I had asked this question at the last meeting, and I'm still not sure about it. From what I went back and saw, Common Citizen received both special land use and site plan approval, well, this, from Planning Commission, because you do the site plan approval back on March 2nd, 2023. On January 11th, 2024, they received a one-year extension on their site plan, and they had until March 2nd of 2025 to either submit a new site plan or begin construction. I kind of questioned because I did not think that they submitted this site plan by the March 2nd deadline of this year. I don't know if there was another extension done administratively that bumped it out a couple of months or so, but from everything I was looking at, it didn't seem like the site plan was received until April 1st of this year. And, you know, then going back with the conflict with the child care center that is literally right across Forest from them. It's, 80 feet away from their establishment. Again, not their fault, not the child care center's fault. I feel someone in the city, somehow there was not communication, because as Ms. Johnson was saying, they would have never opened a child care center there had they known that that was in a marijuana zone and that there was potentially going to be a marijuana facility right next door to them. And conversely, I don't think that Common Citizen would have chosen that location had they known that a child care center had purchased a building right across Forest from them. So I know there's a lot of different issues going on with this. My thing is, did they resubmit did they get this site plan submitted by the deadline of the extension that they got in 2024? And does that have any bearing on, who moves forward? And, because I think some consideration needs to be given to the child care center that has been open for 2.5 years now. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And we will have no new business. Do we need a motion to close the public hearing?
Since there was a motion to open it, I'd
Okay.
recommend a
Can I
motion.
get a
to
motion
close.
to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
We have motion, do we have support?
Support.
We have motion by Commissioner Sasek, support by Commissioner Moody.
Mr. Sasek?
Yes.
Mrs. Moody?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall Rayford?
Yes.
Mr. Stokes?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman DeHunt?
Yes. We have no new business. We will move on to unfinished business. Paul, how do you pronounce your last name?
Kerbiel.
Paul, Mr. Urbiel, it's up to you. If you can present the project, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, as we spoke about last time, the applicant, Common Citizen LLC, submitted a site plan special land use application, which represents a revision of what was approved in 2023 to conduct, or to open a marijuana facility at 2425 Gratiot, excuse me. This proposal is to redevelop 5 parcels of land, and reuse an existing building which once housed Joe's Music, for the marijuana facility, to tear down the, buildings to the south, to redevelop into a parking lot, as before, to utilize the land further west on Bell Avenue, as parking for the facility. Different from before, to exclude the northernmost parcel with the automotive center, and that parcel, or those 2 parcels, are excluded from this proposal. They were in the proposal last time. Also different, I guess it's worth noting, that the site was going to be, all the buildings were supposed to be removed, a new building was supposed to be built. In this proposal, Joe's Music Center, or the Joe's Music Building, would be redeveloped into the actual marijuana facility. I mentioned last time that at the time of the writing of our review, there were still some open questions about the community benefits, and just for the record, the applicant had provided the revised version of the benefits, which was in your packet, and then they provided a response letter to the site plan. Both of those happened subsequent to the issuance of your last packet. Before the meeting, we verbally acknowledged them. They're in your packet this time. And then there were questions last time about the differences between the 2 proposals. I see that the applicant has some a more detailed contrast between the original submission and the first submission. And then there were questions about the scoring, which you received a letter from the city's financial director about that. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or I don't know if you want me to go through the review in any depth. We did that a little bit last time. And then also, I guess, if it would be helpful to the commission, I can try to address some of the comments that were made during the public hearing.
Well, honestly, I don't know where to go with this, for the simple reason I have a whole page of questions. Plus, we have Mr. Blum's assessment that I think we need to get read into the record. I don't know if we need to do the whole summary. Mr. Myers, do you want to see the whole letter read into the record?
I don't need to.
Is there anything that you want?
We can put it in the record.
I would like, Mr. Albright, how do you feel about this, considering that marijuana seems to be a litigious issue in the state of Michigan? Do you want this read into the record?
It could be read into the record. I believe that Ms. Holman indicated that Mr. Blum wanted it read into the record.
All right.
I believe so. I'm not precise on that. We may want to ask Ms. Holman, but I thought I heard her mention something about that.
That's what his note in my email was.
Okay, yes.
So Mr. Blum would like it read into the record. I nominate you, Mr. Albright, but speak louder.
Very well. Well, I have the recording device right here. So this is a memorandum on City of Eastpointe stationery. It's to Chairman DeHunt and members of Planning Commission, Building Official Myers, from Randall Blum, Finance Director, dated May 20th, 2025. The subject is medical cannabis scoring. The first section, background. The city adopted a medical cannabis ordinance and created a medical cannabis scoring committee. This group reviewed, evaluated, and scored all applicants. City Council created 9 categories with a total possible score of 200. Category 5 was worth 50 points, or a quarter of the total possible. This category was awarded points based on the type and amount of capital improvements to the proposed location. Common Citizen. The proposal from Common Citizen was for, quote, approximately $6 million in capital investments to the property and surrounding area, including new eco-friendly construction, civil infrastructure, right-of-way improvements, landscaping, lighting, parking, etc., unquote. This proposal included the complete demolition of all structures on Gratiot Avenue between Bell and Forest, permeable pavement throughout, the ingress to the parking being mid-block, the new building being a minimum of 2 stories, a new underground stormwater detention system, and reducing the impervious area from 97% to 73%. This was going to take an area that was old and tired, opening the area up and building new modern construction. All of these items what allowed this application to receive a score of the full 50 points that were available. This was the only application that received such a score from myself. Impact of site plan changes. And this is on the first page, but the back side. By not demolishing all properties as originally proposed, the area will continue to have an eyesore of a used car lot, an old dumpy building that is not 2 stories and is just getting some lipstick on a pig, and will retain a significant amount of impervious pavement with the one site not being cleared. Had the current plan been a part of the original proposal, it would have resulted in a significantly lower score from myself, and I assume the other 2 members for the scoring committee. This would have dropped Common Citizen from 3rd place with a license to, at best, a distance 4th place. Not doing everything that was promised and which allowed Common Citizen to achieve their barely top 3 score is a bait and switch. While my job on the committee was purely scoring, I do feel that the licenses should be held to what they pledged to do for the city. I am including the scoring tally of the 3 committee members, which was used for the awarding of licenses. This will allow the Planning Commission can get a sense of how change would have affected final scoring. And then there is a second page which is attached, which has a front and back, and it contains a scoring graph. And it's titled City of Eastpointe Medical Marijuana Facility Scoring. And it lists the applicants, the names, property address, the score, and then the scoring categories with a total. And again, that is a 2-sided piece of paper, and it's attached to Mr. Blum's memo, again dated May 20th, 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Albright.
You're welcome.
Does anybody up here have any questions on Mr. Blum's memo?
Mr. Chair, just
Please.
to clarify that the scoring sheet has been on the website since it was scored years ago, so it's been public knowledge, the ranking of the applicants.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman DeHunt, if I could too, at our May 1st meeting, because of the different questions that were coming up, I asked Ms. Holman to reach out to the other members of the scoring commission and hope that they could be here, and if not, if they would submit something in writing. And as Ms. Holman was a member of that scoring committee also, I would like her input as to whether the new proposed plan would have changed her scoring options.
Thank you. Kim Holman, Assistant City Manager, but I was one of the 3 members of the scoring committee for the ordinance that was appointed by the city manager. The 3rd member was our Deputy Fire Chief, Nick Sage, who has since left the city of Eastpointe. So unfortunately, we have no way of including him. Personally, my scores for that important category were based on the amount of investment that were going to be put into the property. sheet, I gave only full 50 points, and that was to common citizen, because they were going to take the entire block. They were going to demolish these vacant, buildings, old tired buildings. They were going to abate any environmental issues that were with the car, or the acquired touch car repair, service, whatever it is. The entire block was going to, it was a beautiful design. They took into consideration, permeable surfaces, the landscaping, everything like that. I can say for sure I would not have given a 50 to the current plan. I gave a 50, 48, 45, 30, 25, and 20. And I would not, to this current plan, it would not be 50, 48, or 45. Any other questions?
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Oh, wait. I'm back. I do want to clarify, common citizen, their plans and their, application was approved to move forward before the daycare moved in. However, one of the concerns, is that nothing was ever recorded with the Register of Deeds, which is the official public record of ownership or potential ownership. I don't even believe something has been recorded to date. Title companies, when they are looking, such as assume the childcare, their title company with such an investment would have checked. They will check the Register of Deeds, they will check with assessing in our office, and they will check with finance department for any liens, water liens, any kind of tax liens, things like that. It is not upon the childcare I'm sure the title company did their due diligence, but it is not their fault that they did not know that this was going in ahead of, was approved ahead of time.
Thank you. I don't even know where to begin to start. I'm gonna start with a couple of questions. So whoever wants to take the slings and arrows, I have some questions if somebody would like to answer some for me, please. Why is it taken so long to do anything? Is there a reasonable answer?
I believe there is. First off, am I speaking loudly enough? I'm so sorry.
A little bit more, I'm gonna ask them to be quiet.
Okay.
Can you close the door too? Maybe that'll help.
Well, actually, let's sort of, we prepared something of a presentation here, and that is one of the lead questions. If you'd like, if the Honorable Commission would like, I can begin the presentation. We can
Sure.
stop me in the middle of it if that works.
Sure.
I appreciate that, thank you. Well, so,
I'm sorry, did you give your name?
I did not, but I'm so sorry. Good evening to the members of the Honorable Commission. My name is Will DeSessa. I'm an attorney representing Common Citizen in connection with its current request for site plan and special land use approval for a proposed medical marijuana provision center facility at the subject property. That's, as you know, within the city block along Gratiot between Forest Avenue and Bel-Air. Now with me tonight are a few of the members of Common Citizen's team. I have Mr. Harold Remdiner, the principal architect from Design Team Plus. It's Common Citizen's architectural and design team. And we also have Tim Story here from Common Citizen's engineering team, as well as Common Citizen's principal and authorized representative, Mr. Shadizaki, who wanted to be here tonight to show Common Citizen's leadership remains committed to this project and to the city. And we appreciate the opportunity to give this presentation and to address the body and hope that when all has been said, the body will recommend, as it did in the early months of 2023, that we be granted the request for proposal. Now, let me start with the question that was just raised. I know that one of the questions coming in today was going to be, if this is an abate and switch, what is the motivation behind this, the change in the site plan and the special land use request? I think a few of the figures from the state cannabis regulatory agency's statistical reports illustrate the point best. In In December 2021, when the initial permit process was just getting started, getting off the ground, the medical marijuana product sales in the state comprise about 24.4% of the sales in Michigan. Now, that's at the time even a declining but respectable portion of the market in Michigan. But by April 2023, when we were initially approved to move forward by the city council, that number had already fallen to 3.3%. And now, medical sales today are a 0.19% of the market in the state of Michigan, full stop. Now, saying that differently, adult use sales, not medical, adult use sales are more than 99.8% of the marijuana product sales in the state of Michigan. There is nothing left now for medical. And even in recreational cannabis, as of January this year, we have reports from the state of Michigan that the average retail cost for an ounce of marijuana product is about $66.50. For reference, in January of 2022, that price was about $152.74. So from the time when the process was getting off the ground to now, we have about a 56% drop in price over 3 years. Now the communities that have these entities, marijuana businesses, don't suffer. Sales continue to increase in the state of Michigan. In fact, we saw an 8% sales increase in January of this year from the previous year, 2024. But while sales boom and communities enjoy those benefits, the reality, I'm sorry to say, is that the proposed amendment to the site plan and special land use requests that are under discussion today reflect an eye for avoidance of harmful overspending that is necessary now to begin in this industry. We simply did not know then what we know now about the future of marijuana, and the changes reflect what is necessary for survival in this industry.
All right, so I have another question. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No.
Do you physically own those properties right now? Not a purchase agreement, not a letter of understanding. Do you physically own the properties right now?
With regard to the property, I think most at issue, I think that's 24545, the one right at the corner of Gratiot and Bell Avenue.
The old real estate company, yes.
We retain the option.
So you physically do not own the property, you have an option.
As of now, it has not been closed.
They're all under contract with deposits paid, continue to be paid.
So, but there is no physical ownership as of yet. They paid deposits, but there's no physical ownership. You need to cut the grass, by the way, too, if you have an option on it, because the property is not looking good. All right, so you physically don't own it, but you have options on it. All right, go on, I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt.
No, not at all. One thing I think is important to address here, because I know we're all talking about concerns, is one of the bigger elephants in the room, and it's a source of good news, actually. It's litigation. Weirdest, I know, I just have good news on litigation at the same time. As everyone here is aware, in March this year, the city was sued by the Exhibit Cannabis Company. That was one of the unsuccessful applicants for a medical marijuana provision center permit during the initial competitive process in 2021-2022. The Exhibit Cannabis Company was later joined by a second plaintiff, that's Jars Ventures 20 LLC, and the two contend that the adult use ordinance violates state statutory law and that it's unconstitutionally vague. The Exhibit Cannabis Company also filed a motion seeking to enjoin the city from processing its applications for adult use permits in accordance with the new ordinance. So in keeping with Common Citizens' commitment to this project, the city and this community, Common Citizens stepped up and intervened in the lawsuit to aid in the city's defense. It isn't uncommon for sour grapes lawsuits to be filed by dissatisfied, unsuccessful applicants in the marijuana industry today. Frequently, those kind of entities, disgruntled as they are, try to bully municipalities into granting them licenses or permits just to make litigation disappear. But the city's own talented legal team, Common Citizens team, and the additional representation from the two other successful applicants, we pushed back. Common Citizen filed a motion to dismiss the claims raised by both plaintiffs, and a second motion of the same kind was filed by the other two successful applicants. And those motions, along with the Exhibit Cannabis Company's motion for an injunction, were all heard by the Macomb County Circuit Court the Monday that just passed. I had the privilege of arguing those motions, and as you may have heard, there is indeed good news. The Exhibit Cannabis Company's motion for an injunction has been slaughtered away. It's shot down. So at present, plaintiffs have been unsuccessful in blocking this city's authority to continue to process applications under the new adult use ordinance. The court also advised that it would issue an opinion on the defensive motions for summary disposition of the motions to make the lawsuits disappear entirely. Those will come out ostensibly in the coming weeks, according to the words of the court. Now, I don't like to predict what courts will do, but I can say that when the court denied the request for an injunction, it reasoned that the plaintiffs had filed their lawsuit before applications had been submitted, before adult use permits had gone out, before anyone has been awarded or denied licenses under the current ordinance. Now, this gives us an idea that it is possible the court will find the plaintiffs do not have the standing to maintain their lawsuit, and for that reason, there is a very real chance that currently pending litigation, and perhaps any future litigation for that matter, will be dismissed. Monday was a victory, and we hope to report more soon. But in any event, Common Citizen maintains its stance, that it stands at the ready to continue protecting this city while litigation persists. Now, if I may, I know there have been questions about some of the specific factors, and I think it may be best, the scoring factors that is, I think it may be best for me to just sort of go through them quickly to try and assuage some of the concerns that I know the scorers have brought to attention. Pardon. The first factor from the original 9 involves the content and sufficiency of the information provided in the application for medical marijuana provisioning center permits. Our application information would remain, with the exception of some of the content in our amended site plan and special land use updates before this body, unchanged. Common Citizen remains the same entity as when it was scored, and its application information would not be impacted. We received the full 10 points under this factor, and we believe we will continue to do so under this current proposal. The second factor, whether our proposed use is consistent with the land use for the surrounding neighborhood, and whether there would be a detrimental effect on residents or abutting properties. The April 23rd, 2025 memorandum submitted by the city's contractor planner, McKenna, actually addresses this point beautifully. McKenna notes that provisioning centers are permitted in the MU3 district where the subject property sits, and the 2040 master plan designates this area as regional commercial, which is intended for thoroughfare-oriented businesses that will generate greater volumes of traffic and activity. Moreover, this project is located in the Gratiot Corridor Potential Intensity Change area, where the city hopes to improve visibility by consolidating sites and developing land in a manner that protects present single-family homes. We will be connecting 5 parcels along Gratiot, and we will be moving canopied pedestrian-friendly entrance, the canopied pedestrian-friendly entrance, further away from Forest Avenue, which actually increases the previous buffer from the original submission. McKenna further agrees that the sale of marijuana products is not going to change the essential character of the community, that the use is not going to be hazardous to the community or the neighborhood, and that we will be redesigning a row of vacant buildings with aesthetically pleasing materials and colors that promote a more environmentally friendly and people-oriented site. We are going to be using sustainable features. We're going to be in compliance with the public engagement goals of the master plan. We received full points before, and we believe respectfully that we would do so under this submission. We are still going to be impacting 5 parcels right along that row. Something that I think most buyers would not dream of.
Is it, there are 5 buildings there excluding the car repair?
7 parcels.
There's 6 parcels?
7.
7 parcels there?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
7 parcels, 5 owners.
Yep.
Thank you. Well, so that brings us to the third factor. Now, the third factor concerns planned neighborhood outreach and whether the applicant plans to make significant physical improvements to the area around the property or the contiguous areas. The city is concerned, I know, with plans to eliminate negative effects on the surrounding neighborhood and improve the area. I think Mr. Remlinger might be able to speak to this better than I can, but I can say this. The proposed site is going to be equipped, if approved, with high-efficiency particulate air filters, along with activated carbon filtration systems for odor control. The air leaving that building through exhaust vents is going to have to get through one of our filtration systems before it ever leaves. Doors and windows are going to be closed except to allow people ingress and egress from the building. And at any rate, odor should be at a minimum anyway, because as the body knows, there is no consumption of product allowed on the premises. We're also going to be including some upgrades. I know there was concern that was just outlined from the scorers about whether or not we were going to be increasing permeability as we originally promised, whether we were going to be doing the landscaping as originally promised. We are going to lay down a new paved parking area. The existing public alleyway is going to be repaired. We're going to raise a masonry screen wall along Forest Avenue and Bell Avenue to shield the residential neighborhoods. And we will be indeed adding new landscaping between the masonry screen walls and the public sidewalk to beautify the public right-of-way. We're going to be adding permeable paving to the right-of-way along Gratiot Avenue to make on-street parking more accessible. Now, originally, we did not receive the full points under this factor in the original process. Out of 20 possible points, we got 15, 15, and 8, respectively, from the scorers. But for the reasons I just described, and again, which Mr. Remlinger is going to be much more articulate about, I promise, we demonstrate that we intend to minimize negative impact from this project to maximize the overall benefit to the community. Factor 4. This is an easy one. The factor assesses the business probity, moral reputation, and relevant criminal history of the stakeholders. It concerns whether the applicant or its stakeholders have record bad acts against the public health, welfare, and safety of the community. Nothing about these items has changed at all with regard to common citizen and stakeholders. We received full points before, and nothing has gone wrong since business, so we submit that we would get full points now. The fifth factor, and I know this is one of the ones that was very important from a numerical standpoint, and the one that I think Ms. Blum just touched upon. This one concerns whether the applicant has made or plans to make significant capital improvements to the proposed facility, the surrounding neighborhood, and the city itself. The factor covers a lot of concerns from capital investment to renovations to the property and surrounding area to design, security measures, and renovation. Let me first say that our capital investment, although the project now encompasses 5 parcels instead of the originals, is a whopping $4 million. This is in addition to the planned community outreach, which I'm going to get to in a moment. But our capital investment includes efforts to reduce imperviousness, calm traffic, and aid in stormwater management. We're going to reduce the size of the curb, incorporate sustainable design elements, increase visibility and walkability of the site, and provide aesthetically pleasing designs. Again, we are going to be tearing down 2 dilapidated structures along Gratiot, including the south structure along Gratiot and Forest, which currently features a hole in the roof that presents an undeniable safety concern. And we will be renovating the subject property, with the exception of the building at the edge of Gratiot and Bell Avenue. We're going to be revitalizing the entire front of that city block. Now, I'm not sure how long the buildings that will be affecting have been vacant. It's been at least 2 years since the original permit review process, and I know a portion of the property was vacant for years at least before that. And we are submitting an effort to address that right now.
If I may, I'm sorry, you said you would change the entire block, but you really won't. You're only going to be changing the face of it up to the car lot that you would not be taking, is that correct?
That is correct, but I think it's also important to note, respectfully of course, the property that remains there at the corner of Bell and Gratiot is probably the most usable by a large margin of the properties that sit there now. And with the property that we are going to be introducing, if approved by this body, the marketability of that remaining parcel that once was a used car lot is going to pop right up. It's going to be next to a high desirability, good traffic volume, directly adjacent to a medical marijuana facility, and if all goes well, an adult use facility. It will be desirable, and we believe that it will be filled in due time. But right now, it sits next to 5 at least parcels that are themselves vacant, dilapidated, blighted, and hurting, bleeding. We will address them.
So you also mentioned something about a masonry wall. Are you talking, you're gonna put a masonry wall down the length of the alleyway?
No, I can explain that when I get up, and I
Okay.
show some renderings on that, so you understand.
You have to understand it, and forgive me for, apologies to everybody on this commission, but some of us were here for the first go-round. And some of us have lashes on our backs from the first go-round. And it was a very contentious thing. And frankly, I thought you guys had the absolute best, special land use of all three of them. And I live over that way. I'm not too crazy about that type of establishment being over that way, but you know what? You had a great plan, and it looked really good. So, take it for what it is. It's just, this has been a contentious thing for us for a long time. And some of us got the lashes. Commissioner Ulinski and I are the only ones left of the original group, but it was harsh. So, sorry, go on.
Chairman DeHunt, if I may, I've got a couple of questions for the gentleman too.
Please. I still have more.
So my first question is probably going to be the easiest question, and that is, has your firm been retained by common citizens from day one?
Yes, that is correct.
It is correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because there's just a lot of issues. We've been hearing about everything common citizen is going to do, but the unanswered questions still are, why when in November of 2022, 3 businesses were notified that they were going to be receiving licenses for medical, and I understand the change, and then in 2023, there was a request for an extension that City Council had granted an extension of 1 year, which would take it to 2024. And we are now in May of 2025, and we have a situation where on April 1st of 2025, a whole new site plan has been offered. And again, eliminating one parcel that was supposed to be taken down, because I don't necessarily agree that by having a marijuana facility, that's going to become a prime piece of property for somebody. And we're holding the other 2 licensees to every item that was on their proposed plans. Why should we be all of a sudden 7 months out from the last deadline that says, in order to receive your recreational license, you have to be operating by December 31st. We're 7 months out and nothing has been done yet. That's my biggest concern. We have an ethic responsibility to this community, and we're not seeing it coming from your group. I'm sorry.
I understand, and I want to acknowledge the comment from Commissioner Knott as well. We're not trying to downplay, I apologize if I got a little quiet there, we're not trying to downplay the impact and the difficulties that have arisen because of this. I know that public-facing bodies often take the worst lashes, as you put it, from the fallout of these kinds of municipal decisions. To address your question, Commissioner Sesek, again, the reality is that when we originally applied, we didn't know what we didn't know about the industry. And I think it's important to realize that we did not go into this thinking, oh, let's tell them we're going to put together a medical facility and then stand on it for the period that we have. That was never the intention. What happened was, again, when the process got started in 2020, the end of 2021, medical was still commanding a respectable portion of the market of sales in Michigan. Already, though, by the time we got to the beginning of 2023, when we actually were approved by this body and the city council, rather, to move forward, By that time, medical was already down to, I think, 3 and some change % of the market. We did not know that was going to happen. We did not understand the breadth of expansion that would be had in Michigan so quickly in the adult use market. But the reality is it happened. And when it did, it ran all the medical facilities right out of business, right through the market. It became fiscally unrealistic and irresponsible for us to try and move forward on it in the way that we had proposed.
I don't question, I know that your company is honorable and forthright, and I don't question anything like that. And the design that you've put forward is beautiful. Has any of this been conveyed to the city? Did anybody in the last 3 years, from any of the 3 facilities that have taken forever to do anything, has anybody ever gone to city administration and said, we have concerns about the plummeting price of products, or we have concerns about this? Has anybody ever gone to the building department or to city administration or city council and said, I can't get going right now because it would be fiscally irresponsible? I completely understand, what you're saying, but has anybody conveyed that to the city? We watched a swarm of people when marijuana first got approved, coming in, taking options on all this property, buying all this property. They didn't even know where it was gonna go. But like locusts on a field of wheat, swept right in. And we've seen properties sit and sit and sit. And I had a discussion with Mayor Kleinfeld after City Council approved the change in the ordinance. I completely understand his take, that he wants to see these buildings go forward. And I completely respect the fact that he put a timeline on it. But I just want to know, did anybody say anything to the city that this is why it's taking so long? Or are we just sitting and watching empty buildings with grass growing too tall? I would love to know if anybody communicated that to anybody in the city.
I can't speak to every communication that's been exchanged with the city, as you may or may not be able to tell. I'm big green myself, but I can say this. The motivating factors behind the requests for extensions in 2024, behind our support of the council's decision to adopt adult use in 2025, and behind this proposal all concern and reflect our concerns about the market as it is. I don't know, to answer your question more directly, whether or not anyone sent an email to someone in administration saying, hey, we're not so sure about the fiscal viability of the project as it was, and this is the reason precisely behind this request for alterations.
All right, I want to swing over to Mr. Myers or Ms. Holman. Did anybody ever receive any communication from any of the facilities as to why it took so long to get going?
Not in my office.
Ms. Holman? So we just sat on property for 2 years until the mayor pretty much lit a fuse.
We had assumptions, but there were no sit-down discussions.
Okay. Thank you.
An additional thing I think needs to be said about that is that we acknowledge the administration's decision to put a cap on this. So there's a December 31st, as this body knows, December 31st deadline where you're either going to be open or you're not. And we have every intention of moving forward with that deadline in mind. We're not under any impressions that this body or the city council is in the mood to continue allowing the grass to get taller. We are fully intending, if this body and the city council support us in this endeavor, as we've tried to support this community through its litigation, we intend to get this done now. And there's only so much more I can say about it, except that we have every endeavor in mind to get this done on time. Thank you. That was a big concern. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm relatively new to the situation, but I'd like to know what type of timeline can you provide us with that would be an indicator that yes, indeed, you will get this done by December 31st?
Well, I think that's something that our architectural engineering team are going to be able to speak to with a lot more efficacy than I can. So I'm gonna leave it to them. If you wouldn't mind, and it is entirely this body's call, I can, I think what might help is if I get through the remaining factor presentation that I have right now, and we will note that question so that we can address it when Mr. Remmer comes up. Would that be all right with the body?
It's fine, so long as we get it addressed.
We will get that addressed. I think I was speaking to address some of the concerns that were brought up about Factor 5. Again, we do intend to rehabilitate the front-facing area of Gratiot there along between Bell and Forest Avenue. To go along with the rehabilitation of these vacant areas, we are going to make way for a new parking area, plaza. There's going to be masonry screen walls, and again, increased landscape. We're going to feature a number of complementary materials and sustainable features that are far too numerous for me to go into. Mr. Roman can speak to those again with more authority. Our security measures, which are a part of this factor, are as previously detailed. In fact, many of the things about our application are as previously detailed in the one that was considered from the 2021 and 2022 process. We will have security surveillance cameras installed to monitor and report entrances, along with the places of potential ingress and areas where product and cash are kept. We will install robbery and burglary alarm systems, which are professionally monitored. We're going to include an affixed locking safe and affixed refrigeration for storage of product and cash on the premises. Marijuana product will at all times be kept in a secure manner. It cannot be seen from the exterior of the site. So no children walking by our building will be seen in storage, growth, processing, or exchange of product at all. Full stop. Finally, our landscaping has been designed to exceed the current zoning requirements. There are non-invasive trees which are proposed to surround the property, some of which are integrated within the design landscape areas. Exterior lighting is comprised of LED full cutoff fixtures, which are designed to accentuate our architectural elements without an excessive light bleed into the neighboring properties. Ingress to the parking area has been located north off Forest Avenue to improve and maintain current traffic operations. And ingress from those parking areas is routed through an existing alley, which will reduce potential crashes in the area while improving the pedestrian environment. We will be enhancing the rear parking area along Bell Avenue with landscaping. We'll be repairing and cutting back the existing screen to provide a clear corner of vision. A new vegetative screening will assist the existing walls so that neighbors won't be faced with the eyesore that I know everyone wants to avoid. Out of a total of 50 points, 2 of the city scorers awarded us 50 during the initial review, and 1 awarded 40. With respect, I know there are heavy concerns, but between the things that I just outlined and what Mr. Roman is going to present in a moment, we believe that there is no reason the points would have been reduced had we led with this proposal. Now, the 6th factor concerns whether the applicant has reasonably and tangibly demonstrated that it possesses sufficient financial resources to fund and the requisite business experience to execute their business plan and proposed operation. I think one of the concerns that might have motivated Commissioner Rayford's comment is, can we get this done? There would be no change under this factor. Our application demonstrated that Common Citizen has the resources and the expertise to get this done. We disclosed our funding sources and the relevant background of those sources. Nothing has meaningfully changed in those regards. And some of the entities I want to note operating under the Common Citizen umbrella maintain pre-qualification approvals from the state of Michigan, and a quick look at Lara's online license verification portal demonstrates that Common Citizen, through its various affiliated entities under the Common Citizen name, has Class C grower authorizations in Chesaning. The same in Marshall. We have processor authorization in Chesaning. We have experience operating provisioning centers in Grand Rapids, Lake Orion, Lansing, Hazel Park, Battle Creek, and Flint. Common Citizen has an adult use processor license from from the state in Chesaning, and it maintains active Maine pre-qualified status under 15 affiliates throughout the state. Common Citizen is firmly in the business of marijuana in the state of Michigan. Its representatives are experienced in the industry and have the resources to support their place in the market. Nothing about that has changed since the initial review of our permit application. Two of the city scores gave us a maximum 20 points under the initial review. One gave us 18. Those scores should not be negatively impacted. We can't get this done. Seventh factor. That is the number of full-time and part-time positions anticipated, the strategies to attract, hire, and retain employees that are the residents of the city. It also examines whether the applicant has plans to provide competitive compensation benefits or educational programs to its employees. Once again, it must be said, the only meaningful change to our application has absolutely nothing to do with any of those things. Before, the building along Gratiot is going to be removed and used for parking. Now it won't be removed, but that change does nothing to negatively impact our employment and hiring strategies. Actually, since the time of our initial application, the minimum pay for hires has increased, $3 an hour. So employment interest will hopefully only increase. Scores previously awarded Common Citizen were 27, 25, and 30 out of the maximum 30 during the initial review. That shouldn't change. Factor 8 considers whether the planned signage for the proposed site would be detrimental to the public health, security, safety, moral good order, and general welfare. McKenna rightly notes in its recent memorandum that signs are part of a separate application, and Mr. Rimler can speak to signage particularly better than I can, but again, there is no meaningful change from our previous signage plan. We received the full 10 points from all scores before, and that should not be affected. Ninth factor considers whether the applicant has planned community outreach to the city and its residents. It looks to whether we have planned outreach or educational, charitable, philanthropic activity, community improvement, or educational programs, or other contributions that will benefit the city and its residents. I know there has been some concern on this point coming into this meeting, so let me say with the utmost certainty, our previous commitments to community outreach remain in place. We will donate $500,000 over 5 years after our business opens to the community through the community park recreation, open space, and greenway plan as prepared for the recreational authority of Roseville and Eastpointe. We've also evidenced our support for this community through our support of the East Detroit Tiger Cats and by contributions made to the Memorial Day Parade before today. And all this in addition to the $750,000 we have already invested in our proposed site. There is no going back, and we don't want to. We are committed to being good neighbors and providing a worthy addition to the city. Our plans on community outreach haven't been affected by the proposals before the body today. We received full points under this category from all 3 scores in the initial review, and that would not change under this site plan special request. Now, I appreciate the body allowing me to outline these points. Nobody has ever accused me of being brief. And what I'm about to say is a bit incongruous, but it needs to be said. I hope what was just outlined for the city helps to assuage some concerns about whether approval of this site plan and special land use request would open the city up to litigation. We don't believe such approvals would weaken the city's legal position or increase its exposure. But I do think it's important to remember, we're not here today, respectfully, to re-review the scores the Common Citizen received at the end of its application process. We're here to address a request for site plan approval and a related request for special land use approval. The standards for review of those items are set by the zoning ordinance, that's sections 12.05 and 13.03 respectively. Site plan review considers its own factors, special land use review considers its own factors. None of those factors have any consideration for what would change about our initial application materials submitted as part of a request for a medical marijuana facility, and none of those factors outlined under the zoning ordinance examine the likelihood of litigation stemming from this body's decision making. I'm not going to go into those relevant factors one by one, mercifully. Instead, I'm going to turn over to our architectural design representative, Mr. Harold Remlinger.
Before you turn it over, I believe Ms. Holman has something to say.
She does.
Okay. I don't mean to interrupt you. Please finish your thought.
Not at all.
Please. years, I want to clarify some of the statements that were made. First of all, 5 of the 7 parcels, the 6th and 7th were going to be environmentally clean, huge in my decision. Odor, noise, security, waste, outreach, education, and screening walls, actually, education, are state controlled. While they were part of the ordinance, the city really has no say. There are very strict state regulations, odor, noise, security, waste, outreach, and education. There are minimum requirements that applicants have to meet. Alley, screening wall, those are zoning ordinance required. As to the background, if you'll notice on the scoring sheet, the city had that as one of the categories, but our police department is unable to use any of their normal resources for background checks for such an issue, only for evidence. The iChat is useless. This is why the committee stated on the record that every applicant was getting 30 points. So nothing changed. You're right. How about the employees? This was also an issue that I had, as well as signage zoning. Employees, promises. You're promising you're gonna hire everybody from the city. How are we gonna verify that for all the applicants, until they actually hire? As it relates to zoning currently, and I will defer to the planner and the building official, this area is zoned MU3. It's my understanding they can clarify that a special land use is required to open car lots. When businesses have been closed for over 1 year, they are required to go through special land use. There is no guarantee that this building will be used for a car lot. I hope that they can address that. My suggestion, as a layperson, perhaps they would decide to submit this current plan, since it meets special land use, through the competitive process that the city will be offering in addition to the conversion for any applicants that make it by December 31st.
Thank you, Ms. Holman. Just to touch base on the scoring categories, you are correct. We are here to talk about a special land use, but we also have to be cognizant of change. And if you look at all 9 categories, the building was the lion's share. It was 50 points. And it is conceivable if you got a 40 from 2 of these other people, that would have put you below Loom Cannabis. So I concede your point. We are here to talk about special land use. But with the new building that's being proposed, you could potentially have not been placed for one of the 3 licenses. Had what we are seeing tonight, what we will see tonight, had it been put forward, it is quite possible if they had just each scored you with 10 points less. But again, to concede your point, you are correct. We're here to talk about a special land use, but this is hard for me. And what's even harder for me is the fact that we have the daycare and how this happened. I don't know how it happened. To Ms. Holman's point, if nothing was filed with the county, when the lady went and bought the building to open a daycare, she wouldn't have known. Her title company wouldn't have done it. I'm concerned about this. And I go down Forest quite often, every day when I'm home. The traffic, and please, if you can let your owner know to have her children being dropped off somewhere else, trying to turn onto Gratiot from Forest is an absolute nightmare right now, even before the construction. So it's not pretty over there right now. And I'm hoping that when the roads are done, it's going to get a little bit better, and maybe this lady's boss will find a way to get her customers to drop their children off somewhere else that's a little safer. But I'm worried about this. Would somebody pay to move the daycare facility to a place that's safer, that's out of the way? I don't know. But, you know, our ordinance is very specific. Legally, is this appropriate? Sure. You know, if you have a purchase agreement or you've made deposits, legally it might be appropriate. But the spirit of the ordinance is being violated, frankly. Because if there was no property agreement, there's no way you would have been given the spot. So legally, it might be applicable, but for me, the spirit of the ordinance is being violated at the idea of opening a cannabis facility right next to a child care facility. So I digress. I apologize, but
No,
But the bigger issue too is that they literally are in the 11th hour completely changing everything because you are not utilizing everything that was originally laid out and scored. And I understand that was under a medical process, but they took great length to make sure that the recreational ordinance would blend with the medical so that the three of you that qualified for medical automatically would get a recreational. And the thing is that, again, December 31st, everybody needs to be open to get licensed, but at the same time, not one bit has been done to change anything. And I have a real problem with that.
I'm going to do my utmost, if I may, to address the concerns that were raised by both the commissioners and Matt as well. The first point, I'm going to try my best to do them in order. The first point Ms. Holman raised, and I worry that I'm coming across perhaps disingenuous or disrespectfully, and I want to be absolutely clear that that's not my intent at all. But I do need to reiterate, the odor, noise, and landscaping considerations are going to be addressed by Mr. Remlinger in a moment, and just to reiterate some of the points that I made, we are making every effort, as we did in our initial application, to address every odor, noise, and landscaping consideration that we can. We want to make that area beautiful. We want to be a good neighbor and to raise the value of that area. That was what we were going for the first time, and that's what we're doing now. As to the concern about employees, the question was how can we verify that they'll come from the city until after we've already received approvals and people start to get hired. That was, Ms. Holman kind of touched upon this already. That's not just a concern with us. That, in theory, is applicable to literally any applicant for any license ever. You know, we promise that we're going to bring in these employees from the city of Eastpointe. Can you really verify they're not twirling their mustaches behind closed doors and saying, no, we never intended to do that. That's a concern with everyone. But our plan, which we will stick to, is to bring in an employee base from the city and to meet our promises as we laid them out in our application. We don't intend to deviate. It was never our intention to bait and switch anything included from anything in our application right down to our employee roster. Now, there was also a remark made about whether the property at Bell and Gratiot can be used as a used car lot and the process that would be involved if it were to be used in that fashion. Again, respectfully, perhaps I didn't articulate myself well, it wouldn't be the first time, but it's never been our suggestion that the property there should or could only be used for another used car facility. We imagine it can be used for any compatible MU3 use in the city. Our suggestion is merely that once our facility is approved and constructed, it will entice others to share in the traffic and beautification of that area by purchasing it for whatever intent they have, and they'll present that use to this body. We don't necessarily think it's going to be a used car lot. I guess it could be, but that would be for the body and for the purchaser to decide. I'm sorry if I didn't articulate that well first.
And if I may, all of those points are fine and well. Those aren't the points that are in contention, though. The true point of contention is the fact that you have lopped off a huge chunk of improvement to a block. And that is the true point of contention here. You literally are saying, in order for us to be done by December 31st, we can't utilize everything we said we were going to do. Physically said we were going to do. And that's what the key issue is here. Because we've got two other facilities that are going through a process and are being told the same thing. You have to follow the letter of your original plan. And there's the biggest part of the crux of this. Your original plan is changed because you're now saying, we're not going to touch the north end of the property because we don't need it.
Mr. Myers, can we put you on the hot seat for a second?
Of course.
Well, maybe more than a second. How are you managing the two facilities? Are both facilities under construction right now?
One's under demolition and the other one's under construction.
And are you allowing them any sort of deviation?
No, not one bit. In fact, one of them was asking for a potential opening date down the road, and with all the buildings not being demolished and off the ground, and all the field and F1 and F2 testings of the soil being done, we were going to grant them an opening or potential for a temporary until then. They needed to take the other buildings off the ground that was originally planned before that. In fact, we wouldn't even grant them the right to change their zoning, their sign zoning, without approval by a commission.
So you are holding them to the letter of the law, essentially, to their site plan.
To their original site
there is
plan.
no deviation.
Not at all.
Does this create an ethical issue if we allow something like this to, I'm not going to say if we allow, because we don't make the decision, right?
Right.
All we do is make a recommendation.
Right.
So it's ultimately up to city council. But it's our job to flesh out as much information as we can. So, if the way the proposal is right now, do you feel comfortable holding the other two facilities to the letter of their plan and allowing this to be different?
I don't, for the simple reason is what has been addressed. We're missing 2 lots, we're taking an extra building. Whatever it does, as long as it's been vacant now, planner will concur that we'll require them to do a special land use. But to take a building that's been vacated this long, it'll take a lot more repair, a lot more landscaping, a lot more constructional outside work for whoever goes into that building to bring it back to the new zoning code standards. So on their north side, it won't be as simple as an application for a business, a simple plan, but they'll have to do a lot more facade building and landscaping work to bring it to the standards that's being asked of the city in its new development of its 23 zoning code.
I'm just worried about being fair and consistent and transparent with what we're doing.
I agree.
And I am concerned that there is a lack of consistency if we go ahead.
My second concern would be that parallel to that, if we set a precedent as we get ready for developing and creating our 5-year master plan, and people are trying to move, and one group of organizations can modify, while another group cannot modify, then we have a legal battle of a performance of fairness or equality going through the development. So part of the growth of the city of Eastpointe over the next 5 to 10, 15 years is how consistently do we treat and share all the guidelines for everyone to meet and excel and be successful.
I apologize, I opened my mouth too much, but this is a very passionate thing for me. Does anybody else have any, so we can let this poor man go on to the next tongue lashing?
No, that is why I'm here. I know it's rather irregular. I guess one thing, I don't know if I can ask the public body any questions, but I don't know the answer to this question, because I'm not representing them. I don't know if the 2 entities, the other 2 successful applicants, I think that was Holistic Health and Shark Deli, have even made an effort to modify their site plans.
Nobody's told anything to anybody.
For the sake of the consistency argument that was just raised, I know there's a concern that when any entity in any industry is sort of given an olive branch, it raises a question of will others expect the same. I suppose the first thing I just have to point out is that a process exists for this body to do exactly what we're asking it to do, to modify its site plan and its special land use request. If that process is inherently unfair, it wouldn't exist. We are attempting to comply with the ordinance in every regard that we can when we ask for an amendment to the site plan and to the special land use. Every single one of those requests that's brought before this body would go through a similar process. It would be on a case-by-case basis. There's no precedential effect that could be derived from this body making a recommendation of approval today, because our exact circumstances won't be present for any other applicant in any other industry at all. Each set of circumstances, each set of facts is unique, and the body assesses them as they come before them. So there's no, I want to articulate as respectfully as I can that I don't think there should be a concern that you would be setting any kind of condemning precedent, that the body simply has to approve every request that comes before it for a modification of the site plan or special use.
Mr. Albright, can you weigh in on that for us?
Thank you. Oh, that's right. I turned on the microphone. I just, kind of like on my way here, I automatically turned to go to the court too, and I was like, no, I don't do that till tomorrow morning. I do agree with counsel in some respects that I don't think it does set a precedential. I think what is before this body tonight is something that you can determine, and ultimately this is going to be the decision of the city council. Without getting into different areas involving, for instance, the daycare facility and the scoring issue that has been raised tonight, these are issues that ultimately will rest with the city council to make a determination. This body is just charged with the duty to look at the request before it, to apply the current zoning ordinance, and make a recommendation to the city council to either approve or deny. And regardless of which decision that the body makes, to set forth the reasoning behind its decision for doing so. And then the council will then receive that decision or recommendation from this body and then ultimately make a decision.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Myers.
If I can abbreviate the two scores that presented their points tonight in a simplistic format, I think their concern is if they scored this application at this number 5 category of site plan, where they were not going to do a complete block workout, they may not have all scored 50s, 50, 40. And if they would have went 40, 40, 40 across the board, the reality is they're going, wow, there may have been a third company, a fourth company sitting here tonight and not common. They would not be here. And so that's what they're concerned about, is last minute, someone making a change, asking for a variance, when they would have said, we gave it to them because of what they presented to us. If we now would have known this 2 years ago, they're both of 2 of the 3 have said to us, we probably wouldn't have given them those 50s, and that score would have been variably different because of the design of what they did with the property frontage. And on that note is what the scores are bringing to you as a concern. Because today, it may not have been common citizens standing in front of us if that score was presented to us in the site plan that they're bringing us today, 2 years ago.
I don't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
I cannot put words in anyone's mouth, including the scorers. I can't try to tell this body what they would or would not have done if the process had come through like this the first time. I can't do that, and I wouldn't try to if I could. What I can say is that I understand the body's frustration common citizen has firmly committed, and now there is a December 31st, 2025 deadline to the rehabilitation and construction of property on 5 of those frontage parcels. I have severe doubts that there would be too many entities in the future that will even entertain the idea of taking a chunk of property that size and doing much with it. In fact, that is sort of why we're here. We made a proposal to impact that frontage property along Gresham, and we intend to make good on that promise. We are going to collectivize those parcels, and we are going to beautify that area. And I have to think, again, I don't want to downplay anyone's thoughts. I don't want to downplay the frustration. But the beautification of that area on a scale as we are proposing, and that we believe sincerely we can get done by December 31st of this year, that has to be a most desirable circumstance. It will improve that property markedly in a way that had not been done for years. The buildings sit vacant to this day. We will remedy that if the body allows us to. And that's all I can say about it. I would just wonder if we had put this forward the first time, which has been my contention. I wonder if we wouldn't have received the same amount of points. I just hope that the body's, or the scorer's comments in that regard aren't solely premised on frustration, which again, I don't want to downplay, I understand. But respectfully, I believe that we are going to do wonderful things with that property if we're allowed to do so.
So if I may, we weren't asking you to put words in other people's mouths either, but because of the concerns that were risen at the May 1st meeting, that's exactly why, since I was chairing that meeting, I asked Ms. Holman to get in touch with the members to get their input, looking at what is being presented and discussed tonight compared to what they looked at when they scored it. And we heard in Mr. Blum's review, since he couldn't be here, that he would have scored it very differently. And we heard from Ms. Holman, who was also on that committee, that, again, she would have scored it very differently. That's not putting words in anybody else's mouth. That's going back to the people that were a part of that process saying, they've changed it enough that we would not have scored it the same way.
I understand the commissioner's point on that, and I understand the scorer's comments. Again, I just have to wonder how much is the product of hindsight. There was a proposal that was put forward to the body before. It included that parcel. We are now putting forward something different. We believe to be a superior application, even if it were to have been put forward in the 2021-2022 standard, and we maintain that the comments about possible revisions that would have been made to the score may not have been made if this was the original process, if this was the original application that was submitted. Again, I can't put words in anybody's mouth, and I'm not going to try to, but we sincerely believe that had this application been submitted in the first instance, we would have maintained the scores that we have now, and we perhaps would have exceeded expectations in other regards due to the property that we've submitted to the body today. And there's only so much more I can say about it, but I will continue to take my lashes as they are.
Commissioner Ulinsky?
And it's not personal.
It's not. Not to any of it.
It's okay.
So I sit and I listen and I think, is it an improvement? You're absolutely right. We always loved this plan. It was the most top one. Would your scores have been different? I believe 100% yes. Something I try to live by is you're only as good as your word. When you break that word, you break my trust. Your word was broken. And that's not a good thing. I understand you keep bringing up the landscaping and the walls. That's all fine and dandy. The biggest part of this was the parcel that you're leaving vacant. Environmental cleanup, and I get we don't have a crystal ball on expenses and how markets are going to do. 100% know this. I'm in the finance market, I get it. But no one's gonna come along, and I don't have a crystal ball to say that, but what you propose to do with that last parcel, or 2 parcels, was a huge impact on us for wanting to go ahead with your plan. Again, your word was broken. I still believe it is a betterment for the community, but I don't know, where's the trust now? And applicants, yes, you can take applications from residents of Eastpointe, understand that. But I remember at a time when Detroit said they were only going to hire Detroit residents for construction projects, and they didn't have enough viable candidates. So that's kind of hard to do. I get that part too. Because you can't just hire anyone just because they're a resident. I wouldn't want that if it were my business. But that's just what I had to say on what you're presenting so far.
I respect that, and I hear you. But what you just outlined is sort of what I'm asking for as far as consideration for this application goes. You reflected an understanding that sometimes the circumstances change after words are exchanged, wherein we can't always do the thing that we sincerely believe we were going to be able to do the first time. In that example you just laid out, Detroit entity could not fill the role of viable candidates for employment, even though that wasn't necessarily their intent to hire from outside the city. That's what happened, because there weren't viable candidates. In this case, through no fault of common citizen, the industry as a whole is the impacting factor. The industry as a whole has changed. It's had a few years to do so now since the process began. And the reality is that we've had to account for that, as have many applicants and many existing entities in the marijuana industry today. This is not necessarily a unique circumstance.
Just to give you a little historical background, when all of this first started, part of the tongue lashing that some of us got, at least I was one of them, you were a good girl, was because certain members of city council felt that we weren't moving fast enough. And there were a number of us on the commission at the time. This was all new to Lara. I mean, marijuana had just become legal, and it's like a wild, wild west. Everyone's coming in, ready to go, but the state didn't even have everything buttoned down. And if you thought about it then, why would you buy a car the first year it comes out? You don't. You wait for it to get sorted out.
Bugs out.
Everybody had to have their license. Everybody had to be the first of the thing. But we took our time with it because we wanted to craft a good ordinance. You know, and we did. I thought the ordinance was very good. So things changed in the future, but everybody was in such a rush. And everybody was in a rush to get their special land uses approved, and everybody was in a rush to get their extensions, and still there was no communication to the municipalities. There was no communication saying markets have fallen. You know, I was at 6 million before, now I can only spend 4. Nobody said anything, to my knowledge. And Mr. Myers has said that nobody's communicated to the building department. Ms. Holman indicated that nobody had communicated to city administration. Transparency is a beautiful thing on all sides. We've not seen any transparency.
Even a shovel in the ground.
Thank you, or cut grass. So, again, this is not personal towards any of you here. I love this project. I loved it before. I loved it better as a full block with cleaned up. Lord knows what's under that concrete over there, because I think that was a gas station at one point. Lord only knows what's underneath there. And there was a huge community benefit to having that removed. And, you know, we've really kind of glazed over my greatest concern being the daycare center. I have a huge issue with that. I might even be able to close my eyes and pretend that you're cutting off 2 parcels, but I can't close my eyes to a daycare center. Regardless of the propriety of having a signed agreement, if you'd own I don't care. The simple fact of the matter is, you've got little squirts over there going in and out of a building. Lord knows if somebody's whipping around the building and potentially, I hate to say it, but people drive high. Hold on for a second. People drive high. And I'm worried about the little kids potentially getting clipped by somebody. I'm just worried about the kids. So.
Commissioner, what about the bar next door? What about
The
that?
bar is two doors over on the other side of a car repair lot. You've got a long length as well as a parking lot back there. The alleyway does not go all the way through, so you're perfectly safe.
No, I see people walking up and down that sidewalk leaving that bar.
People walk up and down every sidewalk, but the bar, first off, they have limited hours. They're open from 12 to 8. They do not open on Tuesdays. I was just there the other day. But you don't see people bellied up to the bar. I don't worry so much about that. But when you've got a marijuana facility right here and a child care facility right here, and you've got one road, the bar is way down. That's not a concern to me. They'd have to hit one of the cars that's in front of the repair shop before they would do anything else. It's not an issue. But being right next to a child care facility is a problem. Legally or not, this is a very large bone of contention. Now, if you told me that you wanted to buy the building and move Victoria's kids to a different location, God bless. But
But that still doesn't change the fact that they've changed the site plan completely too,
Correct.
which is the key issue.
Which changes the timeline.
So,
Because I'm really concerned at this point, unless you have a fairly accurate crystal ball, no one can predict the future. And so, what happens if something else comes up to get in the way? Will you be seeking another extension? Will there be any constraints regarding your finances because of all the tariffs and everything else going on in the world? I just want it done and be through with it. I mean, I'm sure you do too, but I'm just saying, that's why I asked about a timeline. Because if this is gonna be a continuous problem, and we don't know.
December 31st is the timeline.
Pardon me?
December is the timeline.
I know, but I'm just saying, so if something else comes up in 7 months? Anything can happen. And so, I don't want it just to carry over into 26 or 27, that's what I'm looking at.
They're not, am I correct, they're not allowed to carry over?
That is correct at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that
So with
solves
that,
that problem.
so with that being said, as Commissioner Raper is saying, if there are instances that something comes up
Yeah.
and they're in they're in the middle of their project, what happens?
Well, I understand the commission's position on that. We have no
Jolo.
we have no requests to even entertain the idea of an extension. We are fully intending to abide by the December 31st, 2025 cap on our timeline. As far as commitments go, I hear a lot of concerns that we are not, we have not shown that we honor our commitments. I want to point out two things. The first is what I've just outlined. We have a cap. There is a deadline that we can't cross. And we believe sincerely we are going to get this property done before the timeline expires. And there are no notions that we have that we are going to, one, request, or two, even be able to conceivably convince anybody of the city that we should warrant another extension. But something that I think illustrates my point a little more about commitment is, just as a reminder, what we're hearing now is that there are concerns that maybe if we had put this application forward the first time, it wouldn't have been squared the same way. To commitment, I just want to say, our team, despite that, are still engrossed in litigation right now to defend that very process that we're now hearing maybe it wouldn't have gone our way the first time. But we're still going to do that That is the breadth of our commitment to this community. We are currently standing in this city's defense against the two originally unsuccessful applicants, and we're going to continue to do that. That is the scope of commitment that we're engaged in. Now, there's a couple other things to point out. With regard to the daycare facility, I know there was concern that the common citizen hasn't had recordations made in the Register of Deeds that would have allowed that daycare to see what was happening in the immediate area. No one from our team is going to suggest that their placement is the fault of the daycare, nor could we. One thing that I have to say about that, though, is that as we've already articulated right now, where we have our agreements to purchase under contract, until deeds are exchanged, ordinarily those instruments are not put in the Register of Deeds. It would be questionable that there would be anything to record in the first instance. So until there is a deed exchanged, there is typically nothing to record. Had those properties been exchanged already, we would have recorded. This issue would have been abated. That's no one's fault. It's not common citizens. It's certainly not the daycare's fault. But it is another unfortunate change in circumstance that we've had to address. I'm not sure how the body would go forward with that. But from our perspective, just to quote you, Commissioner Doms, you had said legally this is appropriate, and I think that has to be the very last word in the discussion today. And I'm willing to take lashes over and over again because of it. I understand the frustration, but the statement was made and we agree. Legally this is appropriate. And we believe that that has to be the sole consideration of the body as it goes forward with its consideration of our applications today. Does this comply with the legal requirements of the ordinance? We believe, for the reasons that I've outlined and that are going to be discussed by Mr. Rumlinger, that it is legally appropriate. And my colleague just handed me an email to correct something that I had said before. I had indicated that I wasn't sure whether communications had been made. I do have an email from Michael Beck, who's another representative of Common Citizen. This was in January of 2024 to Mara. Yes. I was really hoping someone would do that. And he says, good morning, December CRA report, medical down to 1.1% of total market. And as I pointed out, it's actually now 0.19. So just a year, we've gone from nothing to almost less than nothing. We're at 0.19%. But more importantly, that email reflects that a communication was made that, hey, in January of 2024, we are concerned that the market is impacting us.
All right.
For the email.
But hold on. Just saying that the price of your product or the whatever, the marketing or the market base of your product is shrinking, is that the same thing as saying that we need to delay this project? Because I don't read that as the same thing. Now, if you said, Mara, our whatever is down to 1.9%, we need to table this or whatever, we need to ask for an extension.
Come back around.
Yeah, if they said that, that's something completely different. If they're just indicating that the market space is shrank, all right, what, you're telling me the market space shrank, big deal. What, tell me something that's impactful.
The email, the rest of it was asked that I read the rest of them. It says also, PC Chair Daunt mentioned he spoke to you about parking issues on the proposed site. Is this something we can help you with in any way, indicating an intent to make sure that we are being transparent and that we are addressing concerns as articulated by Mr. Beck in his email. He then says, stay warm and have a wonderful Wednesday in all caps, like he likes to do. And that's the list of things.
So it said nothing.
It didn't say it with the.
Said the market's down.
Market's down.
Well, respectfully, I understand it's not a verbatim cry for alarm bells. Hey, maybe our proposed site isn't going to be able to function the way we had hoped, and I'm sure that anyone would be reticent to raise those alarm bells with city administration. It's not a position that we or any applicant ever wants to bring forward until we're 100% sure we're going to have to do that. A decision was made thereafter. But just to articulate, a note was made that the market is in severe decline, and these are the results of that market decline. And again, that's not the city's fault, that's not our fault, that's not the daycare's fault, but it is the reality, and it's a reality that would be faced with any potential future applicant. They will face the same hardships that we're facing now. But the difference between us and a hypothetical prospective future applicant is that we are ready to go. We have a site plan proposed before the body now, we have a special land use proposed before the body now. We are ready to get this on the road. And that's the difference between us and some random applicant that may or may not have submitted a better application.
You don't know that because you can't put words in people's mouth.
Sorry.
You don't know that because you can't put words in people's mouth.
That's exactly my point, I don't.
So you can't say that another random applicant.
Well, I can say that another applicant would face I'm not trying to put words in people's mouth, I'm trying to articulate the reality of the market as it is right now. I can't say what a future applicant would try to present to this body. What I can say is that the hardships we're facing right now are gonna be faced by anyone that attempts to enter this market, and that is the reality. I apologize if I wasn't articulate, that happens a lot, and it's always much.
On that note, just as a curiosity for myself, you've mentioned multiple times that the percentage of medical has gone down in comparison to other uses. Is that volume of revenue, or just has the volume of revenue from medical been reduced as well? Do we know that?
The volume of revenue has been reduced significantly across the state. As a percent, the figures that I'm outlaying are percentage of market sales in the industry, which, again, just to reiterate those points, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so sales are basically $500,000 a month versus 200.
Could he identify himself when he's talking?
Could you come up and identify yourself, please? Since we have no audio visual, we need for the official record, please.
Of course. My name is Shadi Zaki. I'm one of the principals of Common Citizen. So, Commissioner, to answer your question, 0.19% roughly translates to about $500,000 a month worth of sales, versus again somewhere between 260 to 270 million.
Across the state.
Across the state.
And what was it back when you submitted your application? Do you know?
Back in 2021, if it was 24%, 25%, you're still talking about 50 to 70 million a month versus 500,000 a month.
So it's significantly lower. And that was just for clarification. You've mentioned percentages. I didn't know if that meant the volume was also down.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because that is a percentage of the total sales for that month.
Sure.
Which then translates really for the year.
Sure.
And at the same time, while there's been a downtick in medical, has there not been an uptick in recreational? Because a lot of the medical facilities have been converted to recreational.
Absolutely. That's correct. That's why it was so difficult, really, to take investor dollars, which we are fiduciaries for, and dump it into a property and build it out for a business that was probably going to close its doors almost as soon as it opened. And then you'd have another vacant building on your hands.
Albeit a beautiful building.
Well, it's still beautiful. I mean, when you look
But the strong indication also was that you had a council that was willing to revamp an ordinance to convert to recreational, with the intent that 3 previous medical licenses were going to be converted to recreational. So the inducement to be moving forward was the fact that you had a council that was supporting you, and they were working hard to come up with a legal ordinance that would allow that conversion to happen. So there really hasn't been any risk on your side, other than for 3 years, 2.5 years, whatever, things have not moved forward on that particular site.
Well, I would respectfully disagree. There has certainly been a lot of financial risk because we have committed so far $750,000 while the market is going the opposite way, right?
Okay, I'll give you that.
Thank you. And I do appreciate working with council to get to where we got to. Unfortunately, things take longer than what we all anticipated, especially in government. And that's no knock on anybody or anything. It's just the way of the world. And here we are really just trying to all hold hands and figure out how do we get this block to look better than what it is. And the truth of the matter is, the level of beautification is essentially the same, except for that one corner. The difference in capital investment is most certainly only related to the purchase price of that corner. And I've heard, a couple different comments about environmental concerns. We did a phase 1, wasn't suggested that we go to a phase 2. So how do we know that there's actually oil or some kind of environmental concerns with this property, just because of the auto use? I mean, I can say we've got 2 other properties. One that is on the corner of 8 Mile and I-75, which has been in auto use for 40, 50 years. No environmental concerns. We are closing on another property we were just awarded in the city of Pontiac, which is another dealership. Again, there might be an assumption of environmental concerns. Did a phase 1 and it's clean. So how do we know, how does anybody in here know that there is some kind of environmental concern with that property?
I think the phrase I said was, who knows what's underneath there?
Oh,
Right.
Well, it's 8 inches of concrete, so maybe Jimmy's under there, who knows?
That's very wet.
Chair,
Yes.
I would just like to ask Mr. Myers, what is your recommendation?
My recommendation is honoring the original commitment due to the fact that I agree with the conversation that once the city council helps support their need and them supporting the council to turn this into recreation, the value of their structure will well exceed what they're doing. So what they're doing now is holding their cards and waiting to see what happens before they put too much money or risk losing too much money. But if they believe that this city's behind them and they're behind the city with the intent to move this from medical to a recreational, then both wins if we hold to the commitments that we both surrendered to when we started. And that's where I think the value is. The value is they have the resources, they have the track record. Now we're asking them to hold to the standards they started, because they are moving with the support of council to find a ordinance that will allow these 3 organizations to stay in our facilities and have the primary resources to become a recreational. And that's where their resource is going to transform their income base as they move forward. So there's where my concern is making the last minute change on the financial basis of operational startup when others are gonna have to figure out how to do the same as they're doing right now in this city. Other cities, other communities, I've been involved in this in 2 other cities myself over these years, and it's a fight. It's a weird battle, it's an amazing journey. And some plan well and some don't. But the ones that have succeeded are the ones who started, kept their word, finished the project they designed, that they committed to that city, and then in that time of transition, they found the business thriving when it turned into not medical, but recreation.
The other thing too that I wanna know as far as commitment, a lot of people don't know this, but we are a small family company that happened to be able to raise over $200 million that was invested here in the state of Michigan. We have put $200 million to work in the state of Michigan. Not very many cannabis companies, if any, can say that. We are proud to do this in our own backyard. Our first home was right here in Roseville, Section 8, 13 and Hayes. Our first store that we owned, my family owned, was Stop and Go, right across the street. Because we didn't have a car. We saved up so that we could go work there. I started working when I was 10 years old. And it was something that I never wanted to get into again, was the convenience store business, or even retail, generally speaking. And I actually got involved in manufacturing. Our grow facility is 230,000 square feet. We have over 200 employees in the city of Marshall, Michigan. We have another facility in Chestnut which is 80,000 square feet. We just closed on another manufacturer in Jackson. We've got 9 stores, with hopefully 2 to soon be under construction, opened by Q4. 1 here in Eastpointe and 1 in Pontiac. We employ over 500 people, all from the state of Michigan. We focus on local.
So we're asking you,
One of our partners.
so we're just asking, we've heard it, I've seen it, I've listened to it in other places
Thank you,
as
John,
well.
if you don't mind.
And it's
I
good.
interrupt you, please don't interrupt me.
I didn't, I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
We just want you to put that resource to this table. That's
I'm
what we're
going
asking.
to. We as a company are going to do that. And again, the only party that's not going to see that is essentially that landlord on the northern corner. It's not the city. And I don't know if it's lost on everybody, but in the original plan, we were gonna demo that building and turn it into a parking lot. What does that mean for the city? You lose that tax basis. That comes off the tax roll. But here, what we're proposing is that building stays on the tax roll, and then we build a beautiful new development right next to it. It will still look just as good. Actually, it'll be better. And the city will be that much further ahead, economically.
Chairman DeHunt, if I may. I just came up with another question. So out of all of these other facilities that you've created, how many others in the 11th hour have you gone back and asked for site plan changes to the scale that we're doing here tonight?
We just did it yesterday. In Pontiac, after the award, and there was no contention about it. 0.
Are there any daycare facilities next to that?
So let me address that, if I may,
Please.
Commissioner. So as you guys all know here, right, and I don't think everybody out here knows, that application process started in 2021. It was very public. It was everywhere. It was on the website. It was in the papers. It was on MLive, Detroit News, you name it. It was everywhere. It was a big deal. Just like you said, Commissioner, everybody was locking up properties, and the people that were winning were landlords and lawyers. They always win, right? With that said, we submitted our application, I believe it was December 15th, 2021. These ladies here said that they picked up that property in 2022. Well, we had already submitted. The city didn't award until October or November of later that year. And from what I heard and what I understand, they were already open prior to that. So it seems to me, one, as always, when anybody goes to buy a building, there is a due diligence period. And during this due diligence period, you are checking up on a lot of things, including who your neighbors are, what your zoning is, and who your neighbors possibly could be. Right? So all that information was there. And to Will's point earlier, the only thing that gets recorded in the deed of registers is land contracts and actual deeds. You don't record a purchase agreement that may or may not close. There are different things that can come up during the due diligence period after you sign the purchase agreement, during that window that would allow the buyer to back out. So you don't just go and preemptively register that purchase agreement. That doesn't happen. That's not a real world thing. So there has been no way for them to know other than if they actually looked at that zoning and said, you know what, I saw some news that the city of Eastpointe is allowing cannabis, and they're allowing cannabis in this zone. Well, let me, before I close, go down to the city, do my homework, and see if anybody submitted an application. Was that done? Doesn't sound right.
So,
And again, it's not their fault, it's not really our fault either, it's nobody's fault, it is what it is, but, I mean, nobody should be penalized over it.
well, I agree with what you've said, up to a point. If you had physically owned the property, lock, stock, and barrel, there would have been no questions and there would have been no concerns, and I would hope that the building officials of the time would have indicated that to the lady who bought the building. To me, I'm a businessman. I look for trapdoors. If I'm venturing into something and I worry that it might not follow through, I'm going to look for a trapdoor. By not taking possession of the property, you have shown to us that you have looking for the trapdoor. You have been looking for the trapdoor, because if you had felt 100% about this property, wouldn't you have just gone in and bought it and just finished it?
We would have violated our fiduciary duties to our investors if we close on a property that is not fully intended for the use that we are looking for.
So do you own the property in Pontiac?
We are closing on it actually next week.
Okay.
Because a condition of it was to get the license and have our special land use also approved.
And not that what happens in Pontiac is germane to what happens in Eastpointe, but when did you guys get approved for that in Pontiac?
Medical or adult use?
Either way.
So medical, that was approved about 3 years ago. Nobody opened their doors. Everybody was waiting for adult use for the same reasons we discussed here.
Okay.
It's the same exact thing. As far as adult use, we were just awarded that, I think, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I'd have to look at the letter.
Okay.
And now we're getting ready, to close because we had our pre-app meeting. When was it, Tuesday?
Tuesday.
So the other two facilities that are current, again, these two facilities are not germane to this particular situation. When did they own the property? Have they owned it all along? Do we know?
After they got their special land use,
They bought the property after they got their special land use.
That's
Thank you.
normal.
And you got your special land use, and you got your extension, but you still didn't buy the property.
That's because we were working towards adult use.
Which-
They only closed, if you look at when they closed, and John, I don't know if you know when they closed or not, but I would assume it was after they knew we could actually get to adult use.
No,
You know what was interesting is the fact that nobody ever mentioned that when we went through special land use approvals the first time. And I would love to review those videos if they're still around. Nobody in any of the three organizations said we are all working towards recreational. The only thing I got was somebody who made some comment as they were walking away from the podium saying, "Oh, and let's talk about recreational." Nobody in any of the three projects said that we were working towards recreational. And now you're telling me that that's what you've been waiting for.
Well, nobody also knew that it was gonna drop from 24% to 3%, down to 1, down to a fraction of a percent.
I get it. I get it. But again, it goes to transparency. And nobody said anything during the special land use, but yet you just said that you were waiting for it to transition to recreational. So,
Based on what was happening.
Can I just add very quickly also? We discussed a lot of industry norms just now about timing between when people obtain various approvals and when they decide to close on property. One of the positions legally that I think everyone involved in the litigation currently pending has taken is that as it stands right now, while approvals may have been granted, the ultimate approval that is held by the three successful quote-unquote applicants is just the approval to move forward with construction, right? But until firm and full approvals are obtained to open up and operate, it's actually not that uncommon for entities in this industry to.
Yeah, but nobody starts real construction like that until they close on a building. We have had some instances where the landlord will let us work on the property. But to Will's point, just about any developer in any business and anything that I've done, unless I know I have those entitlements in hand, I'm not gonna close on the property. And you can write those in the provisions, and you guys have copies of our agreements. You know exactly what those provisions say, and what the triggers are to close. So we are being transparent. We never try to hide anything. It's there.
shall we go on to the site plan? Because I think we're
Yeah.
probably beating a dead horse.
My turn?
Yeah, let's do some.
This horse is already gone.
Let's get to some of the exciting parts now.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I think so. Then I'm biased.
Approved.
Harold Rumminger, Design Team Plus Architects, reference to the project. Yeah, start off with, fortunately, I know your AV's not working, we got notice of that, so we were able to get some boards quickly printed out for this meeting. I don't know, were these printed up and passed out? 'Cause
Yes.
I thought
Yep.
some of them were. We may have a smaller copy in front of you. But anyways, I just want to do a comparison here of, on the left-hand side was the original site that we had proposed. On the right-hand side is what we're coming to you today before. Some of the things I want to show out is the proximity of where the existing building was actually being placed. Right at the corner of Forest and Gratiot, we're about 2 feet, 2.5 feet off that property line. Currently, what we're doing, we're moving that building a little bit further away. I'd like to say the knowledge that we gained about the daycare gave us the insight to let's make something better and let's help them out to move this building further away from them. So out of that knowledge, we were able to then take a look at where do we place that building. And I think this is a good example of where you can see where this building is and where this building is. We are 61 feet from that property line. We're 2.some feet across that property line. So that there doesn't really move a building further away than what was originally with the old buildings in that place. That allowed us to create a nice green belt buffer, allowed us to do a screen wall along Forest. We feel that this entryway now into Forest for the residents has been beautified and it's gonna be a lot nicer than what they're currently seeing as they're pulling in. There was comments about taking a dumpy building and putting basically lipstick on a pig. We took Joe's Music Store, which, isn't the best looking building, but the bones are great. The interior of it's great, the structure is in really good shape. We felt that that was the prime candidate. We never proposed a 2-story building, as it was stated earlier in the previous one. We proposed a 1-story building that was a little over 17 feet tall. We matched the same height on a proposal for Joe's Music as we did for the original building, which was brand new. We intend to keep the brand as it was. We intend to bring in the limestone accents. We intend to bring in the metal siding accents. We still intend on having a translucent storefront to actually put our best face forward. We're not like a lot of cannabis facilities that put their business behind closed walls and have one door that goes in and you feel like you're going to a seedy bar. We try to make it transparent. We want to be part of the community. And that's what we've done here. We have glass facing forward on Gratiot. Up in the upper right-hand corner, you can see the existing street front. This is what we're proposing with actually the parking lot between Forest and the building. Now, what's that look like from the corner where the daycare is? Well, that's what we're looking at now. We have now removed, as you can see, the building in the upper top. It comes right to the sidewalk. Anybody coming down that sidewalk on a bicycle crossing that street could easily be hit by a car because they're not being seen by a car. However, we removed that obstruction. We have a screen wall which meets the city ordinance for height. We are providing landscape outside of that screen wall to beautify the streetscape. We're adding trees along Gratiot. We're adding trees within the parking lot area themselves, and our building is 61 feet away from that corner, which creates a really nice buffer, as you said, transition into Forest. You're no longer looking at this. You're no longer coming around, trying to turn out on Gratiot with a blind spot, especially if you have a car parked right on Gratiot at that area too. And as you'll notice in here, the median, or the area between the sidewalk and the curb, is 100% grass. Well, we recognize that as being troublesome, especially for people parking along Gratiot, getting out. We live in winter months here. We got the mud months in April and March and November and October. Nobody wants to step out of squishy grass or slip and fall. We've actually put impervious pavement along Gratiot so people can step out of their car on firm pavement and have a safe walk into the facility. So as we start going down Forest, again, you can see we have our screen wall, which is brick, not block. It is painted white to match the building. The building, which we have determined is concrete block on that face, we are going to submit for a mural on that. We know that there's an application process for that. We have a landscape bed adjacent to our dumpster as well as trees. We have landscaping along that entire wall. And again, as you're coming towards Gratiot, you're creating a screen wall that you're not looking at a building. The previous proposal, we were 20-some feet away from that corner with our building. And all you had there was a retention pond, and that little grassy area. Not as much landscaping, not as many trees, and not really any buffer to the side of what that building was. So I'm saying, well, with the challenge that we presented, we actually had the opportunity to actually create something better. Something better for the neighborhood coming in there, something better for the daycare so that they're not looking right at the side of the building and being right next door to that building. We created enough buffer zone. The other thing I didn't point out on the site plan, we had troubles in that original site plan of getting a fire truck through the parking lot. It was noted that a fire truck couldn't make it through that parking lot, but the fire marshal was still okay with it, from what I recall from the meeting. Our new parking lot has pure fire access. Truck can make it through, get out on the alley. We have fire safety now involved that we actually increased, which we could not meet the last time, but still we're approved with it. So we have those items. The other thing I want to point out is, let's go talk about Bell. Upper right-hand corner is currently what the residents are seeing from their house and coming down Bell as they're going towards Gratiot. You're looking at the corner building, you're looking at the old Joe's music store back here. Well, with our new adjustments to the parking lot, redoing the screen wall, adding landscaping, adding more trees, we actually create a buffer zone. And then actually the beautiful mural on the side of the building, we're actually enhancing the view as people are coming in and out of that neighborhood. Again, we have the opportunity to make it better, and we actually decided how do we do that, and this is how we came up with it. So is this a dumpy old building with lipstick on a pig? No, it's a huge investment that's going in here. Limestone accents, new metal siding on it, new entries, new glass storefront on it, putting our best face forward. And how's that look if you're coming down Gratiot, especially at nighttime, to actually invigorate that street front? There's how it's gonna look when you're coming down Gratiot, invigorating that street front. All glass on the front, lights going out from that, activity going on. We have a canopy, we have bike racks underneath the canopy at the front. All the pavement under the canopy is pervious pavement, as we had promised previously in the other application. And again, screen wall screening the parking lot from Gratiot, which currently does not happen on that spot at all. And it just, this is what we're looking at originally, this is what we're proposing currently. So we feel that we have taken a building that was gonna be demolished and taken to landfill. We have diverted thousands of tons of waste material or construction material from going from landfill. We have done an adaptive reuse of a building. We're revitalizing a street frontage, and we actually are creating a buffer zone to that daycare, which everybody has a lot of concern about. And traffic is not turning onto Forest to get into the facility. Traffic turns into the parking lot prior to Forest. So we will have less traffic actually turning onto that street, trying to get down to Forest or trying to get in. As well as we have our parking lot off of Bell, which is being used as well. And we have crosswalks that are actually going to that area. So we feel that we have met and not exceeded our previous proposal. Now, if this was presented at the time, and nobody had foresight of what we had presented previously, I feel this would have gotten the same 50 points as all those other facilities would have gotten.
We'll
because
just
we
never
met the
know.
requirements.
We'll just never know.
We will never know. Right, we have outside forces which always are acting upon us, which makes our decisions in the aftermath.
I have to say, your project, as it was the last time, is spectacular. I mean, nobody's ever doubted that.
The investment is still here.
I mean, if I were to build a building, I would hire you in a heartbeat,
Awesome.
but I probably couldn't afford you. But
You never know.
I don't wanna, I'm not trying to take away from anything, cause, you know, it has been a long night.
Yes.
But your proposal is beautiful, it really is. That's my 2 cents. So we have item A. Consider a motion with a recommendation to City Council regarding the special land use approval request for a medical marijuana establishment at 24525 Gratiot Common Citizen. So do we need to remove the medical part, or do we still need to leave it in there? Because
I guess we wrote the review understanding that medical is
Louder.
medical is all that is allowed right now. Is that true?
That's correct.
So we are considering this a medical facility that can later
transition.
But
Correct.
I thought City Council approved the ordinance change.
They did, but this is for, the city isn't accepting applications for adult use marijuana right now. This
Okay.
is simply for medical, and if the applicant is open for business for medical by December 31st of this year, then they will, under the current ordinance, will then qualify for an adult use permit.
Okay.
And a question, Mr. Albright, do we still need to wait on the completion of that litigation?
No. No, because what was up this past Monday was the plaintiff's motion for an injunction. And
Denied.
and that was denied, yes. The court denied that request, and the court hasn't made a determination as to whether the litigation itself should be dismissed in its entirety. That decision should hopefully come down in the near future, probably within the next 3 to 4 weeks, by way of a written opinion and order from Judge Biernatt.
Okay, but we don't have to wait for that opinion to come down.
No, there's no stay in place right now.
Okay.
And let's say that the judge sides with the city. What is the next step? Do these people that are suing us, do they take it to the next, do they take it to the state? Where do they go from there? If they don't want to take their toys and go home?
Yeah, I certainly don't want to speak for the plaintiffs, but they would,
What are you opening up a can of worms for?
the
You don't
plaintiff,
wanna put words in their mouth.
certainly not. The plaintiffs would have the option of appealing to the Michigan Court of Appeals. Now, whether they would do so or not, that remains to be seen. Again, we're waiting for a decision from Judge Biernatt as to whether the litigation should be dismissed.
Okay.
And I think based on what I've heard in reviewing the arguments, I think that there's a high likelihood that case, the litigation or the case will be dismissed.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a motion that we can get you to read, Mr. Albright?
Well, it all depends on if it's going to be a motion to recommend approval or not recommend approval. There is a proposed motion to recommend approval that's contained in the packet. If this body, for its own reasons, does not wish to recommend approval, then it should identify under the criteria in the zoning ordinance and also under the additional use standards if it believes that one or more of those criteria have not been satisfied. So again, that's up for the commission to determine.
Mr. Myers, do you have anything else to add?
Not at this time.
Mr. Urbi?
Urbeal.
Urbiel, Mr.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to say that there's been a lot of discussion. I don't have the benefit of the history. There's been a lot of discussion and concerns that you have. The review is written without that context. I was just gonna say what Mr. Albright just said about relating the comments that you had to the standards. If you're going to, regardless, your recommendation should relate to your findings about the standards. There are harmony with the existing character. There's a statement about what that means underneath there. Hazardous or disruptive to the existing or future neighboring uses. Whether or not this represents an improvement to the property in the immediate vicinity and to the community as a whole. encourage you to consider a motion that relates back to those things.
Anybody have any thoughts up here? I can't vote in favor of it, so. I just can't. Can we do an informal polling of the commission? If that would be okay? Can we give me an informal poll and find out where everybody's standing?
As the chair, you can make that determination.
All right, let's poll the commission. And I wanna see where you guys are at. I have my thoughts, but we are a team. So, Commissioner Ulinski, how do you feel about this proposal?
Move on.
Commissioner Moody?
Initially, I was not part of it at the very beginning, so I'm listening to everyone on both ends, trying to digest everything that is being said. Up until the very end, before the presentation there, I was vacillating between yay or nay. But when they was able to show me, and I could see the distance between the daycare center, I got a different taste in my mouth
Okay.
at that point. So, with that being said, I would probably go along with the motion.
Okay. Ms. Rayford?
I'm having difficulty with, are we talking about site plan right now or special land use? Because
Just-
A is special land
We're talking about A, just recommending approval
for
for
the project.
Yeah.
I can appreciate the project. But for some reason, I thought the state had requirements regarding either 500 to 1,000 feet, distance. And, okay, I'll see you just a moment. But like I said, I'm fairly new to the commission, so I'm learning. But I know at one time the state did say that. And for some reason, that distance kind of grounded in my head. So I might go along with it.
Mr. Chair, can I say something else too?
Yes.
We've been speaking of transparency throughout the night. And the gentleman there, the family said that this was a family business. One thing that he said that really bothered me, and he inferred that they were waiting to get the okay. If I'm wrong, you can correct me. But he said, I'm waiting to see if we're gonna get the license to do something else. So that would make me, it really bothered me to say, see, it's like you were toying with us. You were just waiting. That's the way it appeared. And once that came through, now we want to do a new site plan. That's the way it comes off. I don't know if that's true, but that's the way I received it. So with that being said, it still put a nasty taste there, but you did kind of sway me with that when you're moving away from that daycare center. You're putting a buffer there for that daycare center. So that was what my most concern.
Ms. Ulinski?
Can I say I was ready?
I'll give him a chance to respond, I'm sorry.
So,
To Commissioner Rayford, I know that question had come up in the original site plan approval special land use. And at that point, I think Ms. Albright can comment on it, but the corrected that because our application, our license was in prior to the daycare moving in, that was in
Because it
Eastpointe.
wasn't there at the original
Yeah.
time, okay. Was that what you were going to say?
Yeah, and the state distance is 8,000 feet, but it's schools.
That is correct.
It's not daycares.
I've had a lot of experience.
The buffer district is defined as an area within 500 feet of the following: any private or public preschool, elementary, secondary, vocational, or trade, college, or university, any public park, existing licensed child care facilities, any existing place of worship or religious assembly.
I think the key was existing childcare, it was not existing at the time of application for license,
I get
and
it.
approval of license.
Also, the question that was brought up was, just to be fair, wasn't the language under the ordinance, it was under the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act, if I'm correct, which sets its own standard, which, just for clarity, the language of the act, which is MCL 333-27959, sub 4, I think
I'm
it's.
sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, the act at issue, the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act, I believe was the one that was referenced by Commissioner Rayford. That does set its own standard at 1,000 feet, but it also gives the power of municipal bodies to deviate from that if they so choose.
I would prefer 1,000 feet, but.
I think we made it 5 years.
That's because I wasn't on
I guess as a point of, excuse me, point of clarification. So on this special land use, wasn't there already a special land use approved for medical marijuana facilities in that location?
Yes.
Okay, then I don't have a problem with the special land use, but I do have a problem with the site plan. So I can support the land use, if that helps you.
Yeah, so I would agree exactly with what Gary just said. I think that there's no doubt in my mind that what you are proposing to build would be great, especially looking at what's there now. I also took note when Mr. Myers mentioned that he was in favor of seeing the site plan built as it was, and I think a lot of people agree to that too. But as a site plan or as a special land use approval, I agree. I would approve that. Absolutely.
Ms. Ulinski,
Yes,
you would approve, item A, you would approve the special land use approval.
correct.
If it helps, I will make a motion to consider
Mr. Chair,
approval of this.
Mr.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
if it is going to be a motion to approve, I would recommend just reading, of course, the recommended motion that the planner has prepared, which is on page 4, under recommendations.
Mr. Albert, why don't you read that in?
Sure, thank you.
I would defer to Commissioner Sasek, but if,
We'll
but
let
I
you
will,
read.
I will gladly read.
I will
the-
gladly let you read it tonight.
Thank you. I move to recommend approval of the proposed special land use for medical marijuana provisioning center at 24525 Gratiot, parcel ID number 02-14-30-251-068, semicolon -2069, semicolon -070, semicolon -071, and semicolon -035 to City Council with the required and recommended conditions outlined in the planner's review dated April 23rd, 2025, and in the engineer's letter dated April 23rd, 2025, and based on the following findings of fact. Number 1, with the recommendations and requirements from the planner, and the project is harmonious with the master plan and an improvement to the community. And number 2, the applicant will provide all required and recommended conditions as outlined in the city planner and engineer report, which will improve the project.
Do we have the motion? Does that,
Hang on, because now I need a clarification. Did we leave out the land
to the north?
recognition to the north in this special land use? Because if we did,
This is considering the special land use as requested for tonight's proceedings.
Okay, so now I've got a problem because essentially we're leaving the north property out of this special land use because their intent is they just want to do away with it.
That's correct.
Oh, crap.
Well, if you read, I mean, the idea is so we've already approved a medical facility at this location.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's with the special land use?
Yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you approved the special land use tied to the site plan that was previously considered. The site plan has changed, the extent of the project has changed, which is why you're now being asked to approve it again. And from what I understand of the concerns are more about the special land use and the impact than they are about the site plan, I believe.
In that case, I have to withdraw my motion because it needs to be the total package. We're holding everybody else to it. It needs to be the total package. So I'm sorry.
So the motion's withdrawn.
The motion's withdrawn, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So does that need to be restated?
Just if there's another member of the commission that wishes to make the same motion, you can just adopt by reference what I've already read into the record and make that motion, and then there would need to be a second, and then a vote would be taken.
Does anybody wish to make the motion that Mr. Albright just read?
Commissioner Sasek, clarify again for me what you're saying, why you would not.
Because the special land use they're asking us to approve tonight eliminates the recognition of acquired auto sales.
Other auto sales.
So if we turn around and say, yes, we're gonna approve the special land use, then we almost have to come back and say, yeah, we're gonna approve the site plan. I can't support that site plan when we've got two other groups that are being held to the letter of what they submitted. So that's why I can't support this particular land use either.
So, Mr. Albright, if we chose to make a recommendation to not approve the special land use, how would you word that?
Well, it would be a motion not to recommend approval, and then the maker of the motion would have to cite or look at the variant standards that are listed in the planner's report and determine and make a finding that one or more of those standards have not been met.
Mr. Erbil, I'm going to lean into you. I'm not going to assume that this is a no vote, but if you were to write a motion to recommend not approving the special land use, how would you write it?
I would say based on the findings, based on the commission finding that it does not meet one of those standards. Again, I'm not trying to put words, I'm not also trying to put words in your mouth. What I heard was concerns about the standard of harmony with existing character, the extent of improvement to the community that this represents, given the building standing there. The hazardous or disruptive is, will not be hazardous or disturbing to existing or future neighboring uses. So I think the one that aligns with your concern about the neighboring properties. And I'm not certain, since this is a new application, the daycare didn't exist then, but it does exist now, so I don't know if they are allowed to consider that in their deliberation of that particular standard. But if that is what you are desiring to do, I think the motion would be to deny based on the findings that the application does not meet standards Tuesday and fourth, for example.
Mr. Albright, didn't at the very beginning earlier, when the attorney for the group there, did you not, correct me, did you not make a statement that it's not unusual for them to come back and request changes? Did you say something to that effect?
I did not make a statement. I believe one of the members of their party said that they have gone back and requested amendments to their site plans in other communities.
Yeah, whether cannabis.
Could you go to the podium, just go to the podium and identify yourself, just so the record's clear?
Sure. Shad Zakin, one of the principals of Common Citizen.
Thank you.
Could you repeat the question, Mr. Albright?
Commissioner had a question. Commissioner Moody?
No, it wasn't a question, it was a statement I was looking for, that you said something to the effect that there have been times in other places where you will have to go back and redo those things. But with that being said, do we not, and I guess this is just discussion, do we not realize or that there are times when things have to be changed? Am I making any, understand what I'm saying?
Oh, I totally understand what you're saying. As a developer, you get into a project thinking that you can do one thing, only to find out down the road that it's not feasible, and then you come back for a modification. It doesn't completely change the intent of the project, but it changes a portion of it to meet whatever had just transpired, right? In the case of Pontiac, we had to design the parking lot with islands, right? This was gonna cause us to tear up essentially a parking lot that was redone just a few years ago, just to add some islands. Well, we were able to go back and get those islands removed and just cap and stripe the parking lot instead. Right? So issues like that, just very small, very minor.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And the reason I was saying that, Commissioner, is just because I know we're saying that we want to hold everyone to their original site plans and things like that, and we want to hold them to that because we want to set a precedent. But moving forward, we have to broaden our mind that there will be times, and you will have to vacillate periodically to make something beautiful for our city.
Commissioner Moody, if I could though.
Yes, please.
We have a situation where 3 licensees received notification they were getting licenses at the same time.
Absolutely.
2 of them have been doing their due diligence and proceeding forward, following every aspect of their site plan, where a third party has done nothing in 2.5 years, and now we're getting to the end of the line, and they're saying if they're held to their existing plan, the original plan, they don't think they can make the deadline, but that falls on them for not having started anything.
Understandable. Understandable.
I don't want to be out of order. May I
Good.
address?
I'm just,
You're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
I don't know, I'm just like, do we hold that against them, even though I don't appreciate the fact that it's very disrespectful to the commission that, and to the entire process, that we've just been strung along for 2-3 years. However, with that being said, I'll listen to what you have to say. No, go ahead.
Thank you.
No, he wants you to say it.
Thank you, ma'am. I guess, just to reiterate, the intent has never been to string along. This is, as Mr. made a statement that it would not set a precedent, which was in agreement with something that we said. Am I correct in that?
That is correct. There was some statements you made, and I said, I agree with some of those, the one being, I don't think they would have precedential effect.
Right. And there are no requests that I'm aware of, and I think I asked the body this, that the body is aware of from the other entities, the other two successful applicants, to even consider a site plan amendment. So since they have no requests, I don't think it's fair to compare us to them, because they have not even asked the body to make similar requests. But again, to bring it all back to ground level here, at bottom, what matters here are the standards applicable under the ordinance to a special land use and to a site plan approval. There are specific, rather narrowly tailored criteria that the city legislative body has crafted for the consideration of these exact materials. And I think the ones that were decided by city planner Mr. Urbiel were standards B, C, and D, if I'm interpreting it correctly, on the special land use approval standards. And if I may, I believe Mr. Elmler can speak to why we satisfy those and every standard under the special land use approval criteria.
So what we did, we looked at this, and actually we had submitted this as a response back to, it should be in the package if I'm not mistaken, would be, is it consistent with the master plan? And yes, this meets the master plan's business industrial goals by revitalizing an underutilized vacant commercial property along Gratiot Corridor. This will increase tax revenue for the city and beautify the area streetscape with the proposed landscaping. This proposal renews an existing facade with an innovative design that helps diversify the retail properties. So, under the master plan, we feel with that, we have met that criteria. C was adequately serve the essentials of the public facility. This is in our response to that, this is an adaptive reuse proposal. Will maintain all city of Eastpointe utilities currently being utilized in the existing building. By removing abutting vacant buildings, we are creating an additional area around the building, which will increase fire police access in case of emergencies. Due to the specific use and requirements by the state of Michigan for security, safety on the site and on neighboring properties, and the neighboring properties will be enhanced with cameras on site, security guards. The submitted proposal demonstrates ease and access for waste management, minimize disruption in traffic on site and to the public right away. So again, we feel that we met that criteria, which was also one of the ones that Mr. Urbiel had mentioned. And then the other one, D, was impact on pedestrian vehicle traffic. And then our response to that was, by providing on-site parking, we're removing some of the street parking areas directly in front of the building to minimize hazards and accidents in cars in adjacent streets. We're providing striped walkways from the additional parking area adjacent to Bell through the public alley to the pedestrian walkway. This will connect the additional parking area to the front entry of the, and also to the employee entrance. The front entrance is directly adjacent to the public sidewalk. In addition, paved walkway proposed the adjacency to the curbs will increase the safety for vehicles parked along Gratiot. So again, that item too, we feel that we have met the requirements for special land use by providing those items that enhance the safety on that. And then I think also throughout the review that was presented by McKenna Associates and Mr. Urbiel, they had mentioned that, within their write-up that we have proposed, our proposal has met the requirements of special land use for each one of those items.
I'm going to propose something a little awkward here. Hold on for a second. We've been at this for almost 3 hours, and some of us are aging and need to use the restroom. So I would like to propose that we take a 10 or 15. Is that okay?
No, not 15.
All right, 10 minutes.
No, it's 10 o'clock.
Can somebody?
Go.
You have to understand that men of a certain age, 5 might not be enough.
Here's a bottle.
You're going to Barcelona, for the love of God. Some of us are still here. I'm going to take a moment. So,
Fine.
thank you. Lest we have a bigger problem. That would include maintenance.
I think even they went home.
They won't see it.
We took a break at 9:54.
They'd have to watch it on YouTube later.
Rich, I'm sorry.
No need to apologize.
I have a question for John, though, that came up in their comments. Because they just made a comment, well, there was no indication that the other entities were looking for. But if I recall right earlier tonight, John said that Moses Roses was wondering if they could open without the demolition. And I'm assuming of the minute loop. It's a quick loop, I mean.
Yeah.
So if we turn around and approve this, that gives them time to present a new site plan, to leave that quick loop on.
Well, I think that the issue that I'm having is the comments, I'm not sure, but hang on. Is the comment that
I'm not sure
that
either.
if we make a motion.
And our chairman just went to that.
If we make a motion to approve or to not recommend approval, we have to recommend we should address these points.
That's what I think they were coming up with just now, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what they were just talking about. But then it gets back to the point of, okay, but because this process was so special, it's not like this was just a standard. This is, there's only three
And
businesses that are
after I
allowed.
said I was willing to make the motion, when I listened to him,
No,
and when I
I
realized
felt
he
the same
left
way.
out that site.
When I read this,
Yeah,
you and I were thinking the same way, and then when we read it, we said, "Oh, that's not what."
yeah, but then when I heard it, it was like, oh no, that is eliminating the north side.
I thought like you that it was approved for all of these.
Yes,
But I understand now that this is specific to the
their
five
intent
parcels.
with this one.
But on that note, what do we do?
We back at the record, Chair? Back on the record?
We'll let Paul get back.
Okay.
Yeah. Apparently it wasn't such a bad idea after all.
That wasn't 5 minutes, by the way. That was.
I'm a fast tickle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you made this entire argument about 15 minutes, and
Well, you know, some people might take it.
Some of us never left.
We haven't had a meeting like this in a very long time.
We're getting close to being
And
done.
it's always marijuana.
It's always marijuana.
Yeah.
We didn't even go this long for master
everybody
plan.
needs to just.
Sometimes.
Yeah, last time we had a meeting like this, John, I think Mr. Lubeck was on the commission.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. God rest his soul, Jeff.
We'll see.
WWJ.
Well, it would have gotten a lot more
Well,
louder
this is true.
and ugly.
Mr. Albright, I'm showing 2 hours and 44 minutes.
Yes, 'cause we did start at 7.
2:44, yeah, 2 hours and 44 minutes, yep. Yeah, we started,
What
we,
it was like when we actually put the original ordinance together?
I was gonna say, you guys have never had one.
Oh, please, and city council whipped out the new ones, it's like, oh,
the
willy-nilly.
the lights are probably gonna be going off soon.
Well, they didn't have to go back and create the whole wheel. That's the advantage there.
I know, that's what I'm saying, it's like, I'm beginning to connect the dots.
So did Mr. Myers take a powder, or is he, made a break for it while he could?
Oh, they had a powwow.
One thing, even before they speak, then I'm done.
All right,
So, Mr. Chairman, if we're back in order, I'd
hold
like.
on for a second. Ms. Moody had something.
Oh, okay.
Back on the record
Oh,
at
all right.
2:45.
All right, go
I
ahead.
would like to ask Mr. Myers a question. The gentleman made a comment that, to the best of everybody's knowledge, nobody else had requested any changes. But if I recall right, earlier tonight when you were talking, you mentioned that, I believe it was Moses Roses, was hoping that they would be able to open up without the destruction of a building. I'm assuming that,
Holy crap.
that building was the Quick Lube that's at the corner of 8 and Kelly?
That's correct.
So if we turn around and grant these people this the special land use and site plan that they're presenting in lieu of the original, we're really setting ourselves up to be going through the same process with Moses Roses, because I'm sure that if we make this a preference, they're coming back at us.
If I can speak to the subject in a broader brush, we settled that in an administrative standard, and they have agreed to take down the building.
Okay.
And so that was a negotiation of administration out of my office and their leadership. They do have another request. It's not as significant, but it's a signage issue. And the only way they can address that, because we could not come to an administrative decision, we have granted them the right to go to an appeal. And that's what, zoning? And so they'll be addressed that, in that category.
Thank you.
That's what we've done there.
Ms. Moody?
Had to go home. The one thing that I have to remind myself and remind others that it's not about us. If they meet the guidelines and if they, who are we to deny? Because if it's here that all, with the recommendations from the Mr. Paul,
Mr. Paul.
that it's there, so we're just sending this to city council. It's not, they're gonna do what they want to do. So we've been here 2 hours, going back and forth, and I'm not saying that it's null and void, that what we've been saying and what we've been doing was wasteful. I'm not saying that by any means. However, if they are meeting the criteria, everything, what are we, our hands are tied.
I was just saying the same thing too, you know, that I think Mr. Beal said that if we were to make a motion to recommend or not recommend, that we should use the two or some of the criteria that was found in the recommendation. So with the recommendations and requirements from the planner, the project is harmonious with the master plan and an improvement to the community, and the applicant will provide all required and recommended conditions as outlined in the city planner and engineer report, which will improve the project. So I don't know, if I look at these, I don't know what, it appears as though they're in accordance with those things at least.
And with that being said, you heard what he just said. I make a motion.
Well,
What
Mr. Erbil had his hand up.
No, I apologize. I just wanted to make sure that, what I was saying is that if you were going to motion to deny, or in any case, the motion to approve is written down for you.
Sure.
If you think differently, which is your right, I was just suggesting that you tie, your opinion to those standards.
I understand. Mm-hmm.
But it really can't be opinion, it has to be more fact.
You're finding a fact.
You're finding a fact.
You know, there have been a lot of people that have joined this commission, and I always say the same thing. Sometimes you gotta eat a bleep sandwich that you don't want to approve. But sometimes you have to hold your nose and just do it. Your building is beautiful. If you built the original project and you paid to move the daycare, I would have no problems whatsoever. In fact, if I ever took up marijuana smoking, I would do business with you. But the simple fact of the matter is, for me, I don't like the inconsistency. But there's no way to write in legal layman's terms how the inconsistency is illegal. Was it a bait and switch? You can't say that either. I don't like the fact that you haven't taken possession of the property, whether you have fiduciary responsibilities or not. I don't like what's gonna happen with the daycare. I don't like any of this. And I have grave concerns. So maybe this is gonna be one of those times we're gonna have to eat one of those sandwiches. I don't know. But all I know is we don't make the final decision, we make a recommendation. And I hope that city council puts the type of effort into their decision that we have tonight, whichever way it goes, so. Commissioner Moody, were you gonna make a motion?
I make a motion, I motion, that we move to recommend approval of the proposed special land use for a medical marijuana provisioning center at 24525 Gratiot, parcel ID 021430251068, 069, 070, 071, and 035 to City Council with the required and recommended conditions outlined in the planner's review dated April 23rd, 2025, and in the engineer's letter dated April 23, 2025, and based on the following finding of fact. One, with the recommendations and requirements from the planner, the project is harmonious with the master plan and an improvement to the community. And two, the applicant will provide all required and recommended conditions as outlined in the city planner and engineer report, which will improve the project.
We have motion, do we have support?
Support.
We have motion and support, Secretary, please call the roll.
Mrs. Moody,
Yes.
Mrs. Paul Rayford,
Yes.
Mr. Stokes,
Yes.
Mr. Sassett,
Yes.
Sheila Ulinski, no. Chairman DeHunt,
No. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Moving on to item B, hopefully we can wrap this up quickly. Consider a motion regarding the site plan approval request for a medical marijuana establishment at 24525 Gratiot, Common Citizen. Mr. Urbio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, as I mentioned, the site plan has been iterated. We reviewed it. The applicant provided a response, I'm sorry, the site plan itself is not iterated. The applicant provided a list of responses to our comments. There are a few things that need to be remedied. I think the responses were that those things will be either clarifying where they're coming from in the zoning ordinance, from the perspective, or stating that a permit drawing set would include the revisions. I've not been with you long enough to know your status on administrative or conditional approvals. The things that are outstanding on the site plan could be handled administratively, but the site plan is your decision, and if you're not obligated to approve it, you can wait for a revised set that addresses all those comments.
It seems to me that we have a past history of leaning into the building department and the planners, and it seems to me that we have a history of allowing for administrative changes and approval to let it be done administratively. Do any of you have any issues with allowing the administration to work with the applicants?
not for what's
No.
proposed.
No. Okay. So should we get a motion? Would you like to read it, Mr. Albright?
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Motion is as follows. I move to approve the site plan for a medical marijuana provisioning center at 24525 Gratiot, parcel ID number 02-14-30-251-068, semicolon 069, semicolon 070, semicolon 071, and semicolon 035, provided that special land use approvals are granted by City Council and contingent on the applicant providing the requirements and recommendations as outlined in the planner's review dated April 14, 2025, and in the engineer's letter dated April 23rd, 2025, and subject to further administrative review.
Does anybody wish to make that motion?
So red.
All right, which one of you is gonna second that?
I put the motion as read.
All right, and,
I'll second.
all right, Ms. Moody made the motion, Ms. Rayford seconded.
Mrs.
Secretary.
Moody,
Yes.
Mrs. Paul Rayford,
Yes.
Mr. Stokes,
Yes.
Mr. Sassett,
Yes.
Ms. Chairman DeHunt,
No.
Ms. Julinski, no.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Now you have to go to city council. They'll probably be much easier. Mr. Myers, in the interest of brevity tonight, do you have anything that's like, what's your top item that you can share with us for
I
the
have
update?
9 items to discuss,
9.
and each of them should only take 3 to 7 minutes each. We'll be all right.
You got nothing? Moving on.
I was actually worried there for a minute.
Mr. Myers, our eyes got that big when you said that.
That's okay.
But give us a good update next month. How about that? All right, moving on to the second hearing of the public. Does anybody wish to be heard?
Gary Meyer, Eastpointe resident. And I have a little question on changing of the site plan. They changed the site plan because something that they needed to do. And worked out good. To me, it worked out good. I live on Hayes, just south of 9 Mile. 9 Mile and Hayes, there's Rogers Candy. Rogers Candy's in business, they got parking in the back. They have parking in the front. They took it away. Got the appliance store on the corner. They're pretty busy. You have 3 other stores that were in there. They had to go out of business. It's because they took the parking away. One of the graphs. To me, their site plan, they moved in, parking in the front. Somebody took that away. So that's changing the site plan to me. That's why they had to move. Is anybody else gonna move in the building? Not sure. Because there's no parking. I've been there for 35 years, it's never been an issue. Over here by East Detroit Bakery, they got the parking in the front. They needed the parking in the front where all them businesses are gonna go. So that's my concern is you took all the parking away from them businesses on 9 Mile and Hayes. I'm waiting for a good opportunity to say something about it. And to me, that's a change of the site plan. So the businesses have, to me, they have some legal issues there because they moved in with their parking. Somebody took it away. Thank you.
We've missed you, Mr. Myron. Does anyone else wish to be heard?
Okay, 1 point. When they came back, when Common Citizen came back to ask for an extension on January 11th, 2024, or at least that was your planning commission meeting, the reason why they needed an extension, according to Mara, was because of delays in construction and supply chain challenges. And so the 1-year turnaround, the original 1 year they had, was not feasible. They did not mention anything about medical marijuana revenue being much lower or anything like that. That was either what they told Mara or Mara fabricated that as a reason for the extension from 2024 to 2025, just so we know who we're dealing with, okay? I did have another issue, and I hope I can get through quick, under 3 minutes. I had a question about sheets, because I know that you're working with sheets. When they were approved back in August, in the site plan, their proposed exterior lighting was not in compliance with our city ordinance standard. An example was the gas canopy. Our ordinance allows for 20-foot candles. They had wanted a maximum of 65-foot candles. I'm just wondering, are they in compliance? They agreed to be in compliance with us when we did the site plan approval and special land use approval, but this is typical throughout sheets everywhere. They always ask for a crazy amount of lighting, and they always agree to comply with the ordinance. Most recently over in Fraser, When Frazier approved them back in October of 2024, they were asked a couple times, could they comply with their lighting ordinance, and they said, oh, absolutely, yes, even though it's very restrictive there. Their gas canopy is 5-foot candles. Back in the beginning of May, they had to come back before Frazier's city council and mayor and ask for a variance for the lighting because they said that Frazier's lighting ordinance would pose a safety hazard. Needless to say, the mayor and council were not happy with them because they said, why didn't you come bring this up in the first place? Why did you wait 6 months to come before us? And Mr. Bruckelmeyer's response was that he thought that he could do an increase in lighting administratively, but that's not how they do it there. He had to ask for an ordinance and come before city council again. So that's why I'm asking, are they still in compliance with our lighting ordinances? I have a feeling they do this in a lot of cities, just by his response in Frazier, and if you could maybe address that, are they still in compliance with our lighting ordinance across the board? Have they asked for any changes to the lighting? Again, it's just kind of knowing who you're dealing with. Thank you.
All right, since there's nobody else in the audience, we're just gonna close the second hearing of the public.
Jennifer, thank you, and Gary, thank you for staying with us.
You guys did a good job.
Moving on to final comments. Ms. Holman. Mr. Myers, do you have anything to say?
I do not.
Mr. Erbil?
No, thank you.
Mr. Albright?
Good night, everyone.
Mr. Stokes?
No comment.
I'm gonna wait for you. Ms. Ulinski?
Motion to adjourn.
Not yet.
Nope, motion to adjourn.
Ms. Moody? Ms. Rayford?
No.
Mr. Sasek?
I would hope that all of us remember those that gave all for us on Monday. And please support the Eastpointe Memorial Day Parade. It'll be starting at the Michigan Military Museum at 11 o'clock in the morning and going to Spindler Park. So I hope to see you there. If it's not raining, I will be driving Councilman Curley so that he doesn't have to walk that whole distance, so.
You wouldn't be able to anyway.
And again, I apologize if I was like a junkyard dog tonight, but I have concerns, and I'm sitting here realizing that if I had voted no, we'd have been in a tie and still trying to work things out, so. I ate the sandwich, I'm sorry.
I ate the sandwich too here.
But thank you, everybody, for being here tonight, and that's all.
So at least I don't have to talk about Memorial Day Parade. Have a safe trip, Mrs. Ulinski.
I'm sorry, who?
Ms. Ulinski, have a safe trip to Spain. I'm sure it's a well-deserved vacation. I do want to touch base, and well, thank you to Commissioner Sasek for chairing last month's meeting. I voted no very simply. I believe that they were bad actors. And we all know how I feel about that. I believe that the spirit of the ordinance is not being followed by that daycare center, and I don't care what the semantics are. I do not believe that the spirit of the ordinance is being followed. I do not believe that they would have scored where they scored.
Yeah.
With the building that they presented, and it is a beautiful building. This is probably the first time in a very long time that I voted my heart, when I probably should have voted yes, because I could not legally find any reason to vote to recommend denying it, short of ethics. So,
That's it.
that was it. So that is that.
It's all in the record, at least.
Yeah. Can we get a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Ulinski, seconded by Ms. Rayford. Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Ulinski, yep. Mrs. Hall Rayford?
Yep.
Mr. Stokes?
Yes.
Mrs. Moody?
Yes.
Mr. Sasek?
Yes.
And Chairman DeHunt?
Yes.
Oh, man.
I promised these meetings.
Good night, everybody. I know, it's like,